What's up, San Diego? Great Thursday morning to you. Midday Hang has checked in, ready to roll with 4 hours of live local San Diego sports talk radio on Annie and Elsten. Annie Heilbrun's here. I'm Craig Elsten, joined by Braden Soprenet. We're all together in our Odyssey studios, ready to roll till 2 o'clock when Gwen and Chris will check in. Got Thursday night football a little bit later this evening with the Niners and the Rams. We won't talk about that much. We got a lot of baseball right in front of us. What's going on, Annie? How are you?
I'm great. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Beautiful day outside. Yeah. Hope everyone's having a good day.
It's cold outside.
It is a little cold.
I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
It's okay to be cold.
It's December. We should have a little bit of brisk air.
Indeed. We're all dressed in our various chilly bits. You know, and then the thing is, we walk in here and like out in the hallway, the heater's like going gangster. Yeah, I think it's back to being cold in here again. I can feel the air conditioner rolling in here. So I think we were all right to bundle.
I typically bundle up for in here.
It's usually
Yeah, like I bring like a jacket or something for in here. But I don't mind that.
Summer is a different time. I can just roll in here with a T-shirt every day. Today I need a T-shirt and a little jacket. And away we go. Now you know our weather status.
Yeah. You can all sleep better at night.
Here's how. That's it. Here's how the show's going to go the rest of the way. We've got in the first hour a look at the biggest stories from the past day that was, as we like to do, kind of round everything up for you. 11 a.m. hour, we're going to look back at the winter meetings and kind of what are the takeaways that you can get from it. We're not going to do winners and losers and all that crap. Just, what have we learned? Have we learned anything?
We're not going to grade every team.
No, please. Leave that to Jim Bowden, right? I'm sure he's hard at work on that clickbait piece.
Let's not do that.
We will not do that. But I thought, Sarah said something pretty interesting to say earlier this morning. He was on with Ben and Woods at 8:30. Try and play a clip from that later in the 11 a.m. hour about getting Adrian Morejon in that starting rotation. Maybe that's a good idea for the Padres. We got to scrape and claw to find good ideas. I tried to come up with a trade idea a little bit later. We'll do the 12 o'clock sports fix. We'll play Anybody Knows today for our silly game. Try and get someone to the Westgate in Las Vegas in time for the Madness of March and a chance to be in their sports book. For that, we'll wrap up the show with Ask Us Anything, get into all the SDFC signings later in the 1 o'clock hour. They had a very busy day. We've reached out to the club. I don't know if they'll have anyone on with us today, but looking forward to trying to sort all that out with you. That's how we got the show lined up for you today. Winter meeting's over. Everyone's flown home, or they're flying home. Some people, I'm sure, stayed last night, and then they're checking out today.
Yeah, maybe get a little sleep in this morning.
Yeah. Take
Late
advantage.
night last night.
Take advantage of that hotel room that you probably had to pay for through the afternoon either way, right? Even if you were going to leave after the Rule 5 draft. So
not a ton of news coming out of there last night, honestly. I mean, I was looking
nothing.
for news this morning, and you saw a lot of rumors of like Corbin Burns is getting close and who could be signing so-and-so, but just not a lot of actual moves like we saw on Tuesday. Really, Tuesday was the busiest day that I saw there.
No doubt. And, that makes sense. If you're close on something, why would you stay in the hotel when you could go home? Right? Hey, let's take care of this at home.
I mean, it's so funny. That's the thing about the winter meetings. They when they originally started, or were the whole point of them was to bring everybody together in one room. But that was before the season became so long in the sense that you really don't have an off season anymore, and you can do all of your dealings without being face-to-face. Like you can do everything without needing to be in the same room now versus when this all first started.
Yeah.
And then it kind of morphed into also it's a place for the team to have meetings with itself. So, okay, we're going to bring everyone in. We're going to go over our plans for XYZ. We're going to have all these meetings with each other to kind of set things up for the season ahead. It's like before you go into the holiday break and then you come back after the new year and it's full steam ahead. It isn't so much for deals anymore. It's just more for like if they happen, like you said, like maybe there's a opportune moment where you can come together on something, but you can just as easily make a deal happen today and on Sunday as you could on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast with them now.
Yeah, everything's changed. Internet world. Everyone's got their phones. Everyone is connected and disconnected all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So It's a little bit of show.
It's a little bit
to
of
be
show.
honest.
It's a little bit of show, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of performance.
Like you feel like you have to be there because what if? But even if something happened, you're really just hearing about it like everyone else is hearing about it at the exact same time as everyone else is hearing about it. I guess actually I take that back. You could definitely do some intrepid reporting. Maybe if you can get a hold of the GMs or some of the staff, the coaches, and maybe there's a president or two milling about. You could try to get some information on the team as you're there, as I'm sure many of the beat reporters did.
Well, that leads me quite nicely, Annie. Well done. Into what I thought was the biggest takeaway from yesterday. And of course, the guys who have the sources inside the Padres that are working as the primary reporters, we have to lean on those guys because they're the ones in there doing that intrepid reporting that Annie just described. And Kevin Acee of the UT has put out a new thing every day. Each day probably of the show, you heard me say, boy, I wish he'd stop writing that one thing. He changed it today. So he was listening, but not in the way I liked at all. And I've got two takeaways from the winter meetings that are from Kevin Acee both. And it's him quoting, a source in the Padres organization. The first was 2 days ago. No scenario. No scenario by which the Padres will go over the first luxury tax. Problem, they're already over it. So if there's no scenario to be over it, but you're already over it, you got to get under it, and you got to get under it, not right away, but you do have to get under it, and that means moving things away because no one's just going to turn in money. So there's that. But every day that was couched with the Padres say they're going to have a higher payroll than last year's $169 million, and we countered with, duh, dummies, you're already projected at $209 today with the built-in raises of all the guys in your contracts. That's already built in. You guys have known that for years. Why would that be a talking point for you? Okay, well, that brings me to today. And this is directly quoting from Kevin's top of C1 piece today. The directive Preller has is to finish constructing a contending roster while not raising payroll all that much above last year's season-ending $169 million. In fact, the Padres want to lower the current obligations, which are around $210 million, as I just said. And so there it is. Oh, it's going to be higher. Well, yeah, 170 is higher than 169. Stop playing with words. They don't want to raise any money.
Yeah. How can they get to, have we done the calculations on just the players they're committed to? Is that the number that is 209, or is it the players plus arbitration numbers?
That's players plus arbitration.
Okay, so if you take out the arbitration numbers, what is that number? I'm assuming must be somewhere around 170 because those contracts are there, right? Like they're not going anywhere, so you've got to account for those. So I would imagine that you're somewhere near-ish that number.
Well, let me put it this way. Just looking at Roster Resource, our ever beneficial resource, right? Here are your arbitration projected figures for the guys that they kept, right? And we already went past the non-tender deadline where we just say, we're not going to pay you, right? So here we go. Arise, 14.6. Cease, 13.7. So now we're at 34.3. King, 7.9. You round that up to 8. So now we're at 42. 42. Morejon, 1.8, 44. Adam, 5 million, 49. Really closer to 50. Campusano, 1.7. So we're looking at about $51 million of arbitration commitments that the Padres have to make.
And right now, that 209 number is factoring those in.
Yes.
So I don't do math very well, but that seems like $40 million.
Well, if
once you take those away.
Well, if you took 52 away from 209, you'd be down below 169. You'd be down, like 150 something.
Okay, so they'll keep something maybe,
yes.
or they'll move things or not bring people back, but then make some kind of moves. I think as I had a little tongue-in-cheek fun with the winter meetings. This is one of the things that is good about being at the winter meetings is you do have a lot of people around that if you can run into them, you can get some reporting done, especially as you see these beat reporters do, sometimes off the record, right? Like you're getting background information on their finances, or you're talking to people who don't have anything to do with the club, either baseball people, people inside the front offices, people who know or have tried to deal with the Padres on certain things. You can get a lot of insight as to what their financial restrictions are, and as well talk to people maybe that don't want to be named, necessarily, but can give you information. So that is some of the reporting, like you said, that we're getting out of there, which is always great to learn because it kind of sets the scene for us. There were some interesting nuggets that were happening that came out of Kevin Acey's article that's in there today that I'm sure we'll get into. I thought that it was reported, and we've seen it reported now from a few sources, when Kevin mentioned that this was not Peter Seidler's money. I think that there's sometimes a misconception that the money that was spent on this team in the last few years was just taken out of his pocket, and that's simply not true. It was taken out of loans, and it was taken out of capital calls, which came out of his pocket plus the rest of the ownership. They all have a percentage that they put in to make some of these things happen. And the thing about the capital calls is you can't do them all the time. Like if I am wanting to buy into the Minnesota Twins and I sit down with the owner and we go over it and he's got to vet my background information and make sure I have the financials. And he says, we're going to do capital calls maybe every other year. You're going to have to put in another $20 million because we're going to try to get so-and-so. I have to be comfortable with that. Now, if you get into the actual ownership and then you find out that they're doing double the capital calls that they originally told you, or that they're just asking for it more, you start to wonder, hey, is there something going wrong that they're financially, what's going on in the financial books? But also, maybe that's not what you signed up for. So you have to be careful with capital calls because you don't want to piss off your ownership so much that they then want to exit the ownership. And by the way, when you exit, typically, you're not just trying to get the investment back, the return on the money that you put in, but you're trying to get now, you should fairly get the capital costs that you put on top of that. So now you're paying that person more when he or she exits, which some owners have done, like they do in every team over the last few years, even with the Padres. So you have this ebb and flow. This is not unusual. What was the hard part for the Padres was they hit the top of that debt ceiling. Every team has debt, but they hit the top of that debt ceiling, and that's when MLB comes in and says, too many loans, we are concerned about the health of the organization, we don't want you to spend in relation to that debt. So that was a lot of what they did last year, right? I'm not sure exactly if there's actually a thumb on them right now from MLB. I've actually heard that there isn't anymore. That was more last year. However, they're still having to pay off certain things and also just kind of figure out, I guess, what their new normal is. What happened the last few years really isn't a new normal. It was a deviation that got a lot of fans excited, as it should have, really packed the ballpark, got everyone, hoping for a very competitive team, which they got. They got a competitive team last year. And now, again, you have the task of continuing that for years to come under new financial constraints, okay? Now, as you talked about yesterday, Craig, they have it all in place already. They've got a lot of commitments that they made.
Correct.
This isn't the end of the world. They've got, and as Kevin wrote at the top of his article, they've spent big money in recent years on players who comprise the core of a roster. They spent that money. Think of it like an investment. They invested that money. And now, just like you would maybe if you're running up a credit card, you've got to pause. You can't run up that credit card so much anymore. You've got to pay it off. And you might never be able to run up that credit card as much as you did the last few years. And that's why when I talk about, it's how you view it. Is it palatable to you to do that? It's palatable to some owners, and other owners would have gone a more conservative route, maybe incrementally, brought things up over time so that there's not such a shift, right? On top of that, you have the TV money, which they're not making nothing on the TV money. My understanding is they're making about half. So say they were making $60 million, now they're making about $30 million. What that changes to this year because they're not being backstopped by anything, I'm not entirely sure. But the last thing I'll say, and that this is something to consider as well, is Eric Katsenda is the interim control person. I see a lot of people kind of putting this on Eric Katsenda. This was always going to have to happen. Whether Peter was alive today, they were going to have to slow down on the financials, okay, because that was what MLB was imposing. But Eric Katsenda was made the control person as an exception to the rule for MLB. The control person for a club is the person with 15% or more interest that they then make the control person. There wasn't someone that was willing to take on that role because Peter passed so suddenly. Okay, Eric Katsenda knows Peter well, understands the financial, goings-ons of everything, is a businessman. He comes in, he's able to sit down, he's able to boom, 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 get going right away. Unless MLB makes another exception for them this year, which I don't think that they will, but they could. They can make another exception for them this year. Eric Katsenda is out. So now they've got to decide who is the new control person. And is there harmony at the top of who the new control person is? Or is there maybe a little disharmony? Maybe it's not as harmonious as it could be as they figure this out, right?
In terms of jockeying for the top, you mean?
Right, exactly. I don't know that for sure. I'm just kind of going off of what these things tend to sometimes, be. Like you've got to now figure out who's the new control person. MLB has to approve that person. That person, who knows if a lot changes or not? Because when you look at I can speak for when the Union Tribune gets sold to a new company. The first year is usually not a lot changes. Like the first year, the new ownership comes in. They want to learn about how you're doing things, and they kind of are hands off a little bit as they understand the lay of the land. Then they go in and they start to get more hands on, right? So nothing, for all I know, nothing could change. You could get a new control person at the top and everything really stays the same. They kind of trust the people below them to continue doing things as they've been doing them, or a new person could want more, right? But these are the kind of different things that you're dealing with as things get closer to spring training. And that's why I think it's important too to go, they do have a core of players that they've really invested in, and that is a competitive core of players. They've already put that money in. But two, I don't know what the future is. They could spend a ton of money next year for all I know. They could spend less money for all I know. It's very hard to know what exactly the next 5 years entail. So I don't think that, but I say that in a positive way. I don't necessarily think that it's all doom and gloom. I think it really just depends on what happens with the TV thing, what happens with, the rest of MLB, what happens with the CBA, what happens, there's just a lot to determine as they go along this road.
Great stuff, great insight, and we'll take a break and come back and just kind of react to that because, I see the in real-time reactions in our chat, and they're all saying one version of the same thing. Here we go. Padres are a mess. No farm system. Why would anyone want to go? Why would Sasaki go here? Why would Sasaki go here? See it a third time. Sasaki, why would he come to a place like this? Our spending will be limited for people to come. Why would anyone want to play here?
I
Horrible
disagree.
Situation. No consistency. Wow. Okay. Let's react to all that when we come back because I think Annie just told you a lot of interesting, pertinent information. You can jump off of a cliff hearing
I
it.
don't think it's all negative. I think it's all just kind of the way of doing business. You know what I mean? The cost of doing business a little bit. But I don't see it all as negative.
Because we've got a team here in San Diego.
And you're not the A's. It's not like, you have a $70 million payroll. Getting back to a new normal doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world. It just means that I'm trying to provide an understanding as to why things have shifted so much. That's all.
And it leads to new paths the Padres have to take to continue to be competitive, like they did last year when they cut almost $100 million off the payroll and won more games and made it into the NL Division Series. So, okay, all right, it's not, oh my God, which is this string of oh my God that's on the right side of our screen. Let's react to it more on the other side. Annie and Elston's underway. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 1024 on the Fan. Andy and Elsten back with you. Talking baseball. We'll switch around to some of the other big topics from the day as we go forward, but just, a little bit more to chew off of that discussion of the Padres and their finances. And I wanted to directly address what literally 3 different people put in the chat. Why would Roki Sasaki come to a place like this? Why would he come to a place like this? If they're going to trade Luis Ariz, why would they ever bring in Roki Sasaki? Because he's not looking at it like you guys. Because he's not thinking about this transaction on this day, on December 12th. He's thinking about a place to stake his claim in the United States. As a Major League Baseball player, he's thinking about his career in the next 6 years, not the machinations of the San Diego Padres on December 12th.
Yeah, and a place that can really help develop him into the player that he wants to be and the player that he feels that there's potential for. I mean, there's so much great stuff written about Roki Sasaki, and then we also see he might need a little more development. He might, which is completely normal if he needs that, right? So this could really be the kind of place that he's looking for. And I said all I said last segment to just provide a little understanding as to the contrast of a few years to now. However, they're not in like the gutter here. Like there's plenty of things that are going well for the Padres that Roki Sasaki or another free agent would look at and say, hey, looks like a really good place to land. I'm going to go play over there in San Diego.
Oh, you mean they've got Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill and Manny Machado and
they're not, but you don't see them shuttering Petco Park and putting up, boards on the windows and saying we just can't operate. We can't turn our lights on. Like, I'm being tongue in cheek here, of course, but like they're not in a dire place. They're just in a place where they, as you heard AJ Preller say earlier this season, need to be more fiscally responsible, right? And they're going to do it in a way that is fiscally responsible. And they did that last year when they cut $100 million off of payroll and they went under the CBT. And then they also made it into the playoffs and won 93 games. So as I can completely understand if you're a fan and you're investing and you had so much fun last year. I can completely understand how fans might be like, whoa, what's happening here? Like, this doesn't sound good. But it's really not that different from last year, and they were able to find success with it last year. They're going to get a little more creative this year because they don't have a Juan Soto to trade.
Correct.
And I don't like to pretend that losing Dylan Cease isn't going to hurt them. I do think it's going to hurt them. He's going to have to be creative if he moves Dylan Cease. But the sky is not, as far as we know, and we won't know until the end of 2025 what their season is, I wouldn't look at it and go, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. It's already fallen. I don't see it that way.
I not only completely agree, I think that it's such a wrong-sided way to be looking at it. And I use myopia because that means you're staring too closely at the thing in front of you and you're not seeing the bigger picture. You're not seeing the forest for the tree that's in front of you, okay? And that's what's happening with a lot of San Diego fans. Go back through it. We'll talk about this more next hour. Look at who spent money this week. Draw the Venn diagram of teams that spent money and teams that have stable television deals. And you'll find out it's almost an overlapping circle directly. There's just a slight little tick off of the edge of teams that have otherwise committed money. The teams that have committed money are the teams that have the bankroll coming in from the outside that the other teams don't. And it's a broken system as a result. Now, how do you operate within a broken system? You do it by finding the next inefficiency. And what's happened in a market that has suddenly skyrocketed, okay? I don't think people are even starting to realize what Juan Soto's contract means to the industry. Because Juan Soto, right? 8 WAR up here.
8 WAR, 800 million.
8 WAR and 51 million average,
Yes.
right? 51 million average annual value, $75 million signing bonus. All right? Jurickson Profar had about 4 WAR last year. So should he now be getting $27 million? And get about half of what Juan Soto got? Well, he damn well sure thinks so. The market seemed to suggest so. What's Anthony Santander going to sign for? What's Teoscar Hernandez going to sign for? Because they can point to their percentage of production compared to Juan Soto and say, if he's worth this, I'm worth that. That's where the market is. Pay up. And if somebody agrees to pay up, that the market stabilizes at that rate. As a result, all of a sudden, guys who were valued at this are getting priced so much higher than their valuation that now you have a market disconnect. You've got a whole group of teams that say, I can't pay any of these prices. I'm not going to pay any of these prices. And you have previously contracted players whose deals looked expensive in the past and suddenly look like ridiculous bargains compared to where the market is right now. Would you rather, as a GM, spend $26 million a year on a multi-year contract to Sean Manaea, or would you like to have Dylan Cease for $14 million for next year? Who do you think's going to pitch better if you just had to bet? Dylan Cease or Sean Manaea? Well, one's going to get paid way more than the other. So that's where we are right now, Annie. We're in a spot where trades are where you can, right now in baseball, make hay. Trades are where you can find value because you are holding something that just changed in value overnight when Soto agreed to his deal.
Yeah, and like we talked about yesterday, the flexibility, whether or not signing all those players, signing that many players to long-term contracts will hurt them in terms of flexibility. And I don't mean total flexibility, I just mean some flexibility, will be something that we'll all keep an eye on for years to come, right? But at the same time, you have to look at that on the other side of the coin of they were willing to do that. They were willing to go out and sign these players to big contracts and hook them to the team and give the fans a core. So there's pros and there's cons to both of it. They don't both exist like black and white, at least in my opinion. But I want to give an example. I was talking to a TV executive in one of those big markets that you were just talking about over the weekend. And he was talking about how they watched a few Padres games during the playoffs, during the September, to kind of, just everybody was heading toward the playoffs. They were, checking out the other teams a little bit more. And he said the one thing that struck him was that every half inning was like a Padres highlight reel for the commercials. There were like no commercials.
Correct.
And as a TV executive for one of those bigger teams, he was shocked by that, And so that is just a small example of where you can kind of find money. And I'm not saying that is the end all be all. I'm just giving you a tiny glimpse into kind of the haves and the have-nots of MLB as we're looking at it. Now that those big moves or some of those big moves have been made by some of those big teams, the New York teams, the Chicago, LA, whatever, not all those, not every team's going to be able to make those moves. So you're going to start seeing more of these trades start to happen. The tough part for me is I got kind of mad at myself yesterday because I was looking at it like, why am I so easily talking about trading Dylan Cease? Yes, I understand they need to do that. Yes, it makes sense that they've got to get more back in return for him. But I'm not going to sit here and act like you're not losing a very important piece of your rotation.
Sure.
and that might hurt you too, because Dylan Cease, yes, he was a bit inconsistent last year, but he's also Dylan Cease. He's got great stuff, threw a no-hitter, pitched the most innings for the Padres last year. He's going to be more comfortable in San Diego now in his second season. I'm not saying that A.J. Preller can't figure out a workaround here. I'm sure he can, but with everything, there will be a cost. There's going to be a cost, and that's kind of what they're dealing with right now. You're going to have to make the best shrewd decisions, and some of them might hurt.
I think you probably, what was it, the beginning of the week? I said there's 5 guys on this team, and based on the no scenario report, one of the 5 has to go. One of the 5 has to go. Arise, Cease, King, Cronenworth, Morejon. Not Morejon, pardon me, Suarez. Those are your tradable contracts. Ignore Morejon. I was looking at something different. Robert Suarez, who is going to get paid $10 million this year, was an all-star, has an opt-out at the end of the season. So he's an outgoing free agent, just like Cease and Arise, unless he is horrible or hurt. It's the worst kind of outgoing free agent. He'll only stick around if he underperforms. Otherwise, he's leaving. I mean, honestly, that's the truth, though, right? When it's a player option, all of the power is in Suarez's hands. So as long as he has a good year, he's gone, guaranteed. And as soon as you see whatever Tanner Scott signs for in L.A. or whatever the next big relief arm that goes down, you'll know what that cost is for Suarez going forward. Dylan Cease is never going to be here after 2025.
Correct.
There's absolutely zero chance. So that's where he's in the Soto camp.
Right.
Of you're not going to keep him.
And listen, you traded Soto. You ended up getting 93 wins and getting into the postseason. You achieved that part of it, right? You need to give yourself a chance. And they did that with trading Soto. We talked about the Brewers yesterday. They let go of Corbin Burns, and they still won their division, gave themselves a chance.
Got a great third baseman that they love.
Exactly. Had a misplay or, a tough time with their closer.
Right, yeah. Williams blew it.
Right.
Otherwise, the Mets never make their run.
But it really didn't come down to their starting pitching that I know of. I didn't watch them super closely, so I apologize if I'm a little
and they mished
off
and
on
mashed
that.
it, and they got through, And they play in the Central. They wouldn't have won our division, but we know they're still a good team, just like we're still a good team.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say is it's not the end of the world, but I also don't want to pretend like you're not losing a really good player. Both are happening. And A.J. Preller was still able to make that work last year, and the rest of the team, not just A.J. Preller, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., they were all able to have a great winning team, even losing Juan Soto. So I'm not saying it's impossible to lose a good player and go out there and win. It's just that you're still losing a good player that in a rotation that you've lost Joe Musgrove for Tommy John.
Yeah. You're down a guy.
You've got Michael King and Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish did have some. I hope Yu Darvish has a nice, healthy year, but it's not implausible to think he might need a break here or there.
Right.
So again, AJ Preller is just going to have to really put on that shrewd, creative hat.
And I think he's working on it. But to cap it, I thought one of those guys has to go. If the reporting today is accurate, two of those guys have to go.
He's probably going to get you the most. Dylan Cease, just for the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Look at the market for the other starting pitchers. Dylan Cease is a steal for $14 million.
He's an absolute steal. So I think you start there, and I think if you add one more, if someone has a market for Cronenworth and there's a chance to reduce that overall debt going forward and you can get to a younger player at that position, is it a combination of things? Do you get a player back in a Cease trade that you could put in a Cronenworth position, and then you're moving Cronenworth, and that's where you're getting some pitching talent coming back to the team? There's all kinds of ways to reconfigure because this ownership committed to a decade of performance from Machado and Tatis and Darvish and Cronenworth and Bogarts, right, and Musgrove. So and you've got Merrill for the next 6 years. So you've got this group to build around, and how you rebuild around is going to change every year. But the fact is, you're building around something really good. And that's why, to repeat and cap the segment, Roki Sasaki is going to be plenty interested to come to San Diego. It's because he's not reading the YouTube chat, okay? He's looking at the big picture. And that's the truth. When we come back, a couple of the other stories from around the world of sports, including the Steve Buscemi meme turning into a real thing. Bill Belichick appearing on the campus at Chapel Hill. Hello, fellow kids. I'm here to coach you.
It's happening.
It's going to be Craig when he plays Fortnite with his son for the first time.
Hello, fellow kids.
Hello, fellow kids.
I'm here.
I got my V-Bucks.
Is he going to wear his hoodie?
Oh, yeah.
He has to.
Did you see the Durham Bulls already have put out like a bunch of cut-off hoodies that they sell? And they just put it out there. They were like, just posting this for no reason.
I love it. You got to.
The Durham Bulls are all over it. It's great.
Take advantage.
From Chapel Hill to Chapel Bill, we will talk about it next. Danny and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:44 on the Fan. Annie and Elsten back with you. With a reminder that this hour on 97.3 The Fan is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings. Buffalo Wild Wings is football. Hey, San Diego sports fans, head to your local Buffalo Wild Wings and try their new maple chipotle sauce for rich maple sweetness and a mild smoky chipotle heat. Or for a bit of a kick, check out the new Cajun sauce for a rich blend of spicy and tangy pepper sauce. Stop by your San Diego B-Dubs or order now for takeout and delivery with Buffalo Wild Wings Go. That's their app.
You made it through that one unscathed.
Unscathed.
Didn't have any logout issues.
Right.
I find, you know what I realized? Somehow, and I don't know why, the little thing that we use, you know, that thing they said, download this app, and then that's the thing that pops up. Somehow on my phone, it had gone into the cloud. Like I looked at it and it said, no, re-download it. So then I did, and now everything's good.
You mean the authenticator?
Yeah, the authenticator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call it.
I speak thingy, so I get it.
Right.
I can help translate that for you.
Baseball-y things.
Yeah, everything is a thingy for
things.
me, right?
Right. Absolutely. How does the algorithm explain a 73-year-old head coach, Mac Brown, being sent out to pasture by the University of North Carolina to be replaced by 72-year-old Bill Belichick on a 5-year contract? So he can just go ahead and settle on in till his 77th birthday as the new man in charge on Chapel Hill.
When this whole process was going on, I was thinking, okay, they'll get down the road and then nothing's going to happen. It won't actually happen.
Right.
But here we are. And this might be the unpopular opinion, especially in this room, possibly. I think he's going to get people who want to come play for him.
Do you?
I do. I
Maybe.
think that he's going to do all right in this. I guess it depends on if you get the same kind of guy or, you know, the thing about it is that I hear from a lot of his players that they really liked him. So I don't know if it's just like the public perception that is pretty rough on him or because of what he's obviously the way he is with the public or with the media. But I sort of think Bill Belichick, hey, I want to see what you got. This could be a good thing for NC State.
Well, here's
or
where...
UNC. Where is he?
Yeah, UNC.
Okay, UNC. Could be a great thing for UNC.
Well, it could be a great thing for NC State if he's
as
terrible.
well, yeah.
They're going to be laughing all the way to the bank if it backfires. But here's where I will entertain your thought. Because, okay, over here on this side of the desk, the cottage theory is Bill Belichick's career in New England was propped up by Tom Brady. That he was bad before Tom Brady.
Hang on a sec. You're saying
Tom
Bill
Brady.
Belichick is a bad coach if it wasn't for Tom Brady? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that he's a great head coach, but
I disagree with your comments a lot. I think it was a perfect match for both of those.
That's
I think
fair.
it was a perfect match. I think it's the same thing with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid could not win a Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes.
No, but he kept getting to the NFC Championship.
I know,
game.
but he couldn't win. He never won. I mean, he got ran out of Philly because he could never win the big game. And then he gets Patrick Mahomes, who was mediocre in college in terms of overall record. It's a perfect match. Sometimes there's things as perfect matches.
And I will say also, The Athletic did this big story on it. And they kind of got into him not being able to get another NFL job and why they thought that outlook looked dire for him. And maybe he knew that, right? And so as much as I say, and I have heard from former players, spoken to them personally, who really enjoyed playing for him, there's this paragraph in there that says, modern day players don't relate to the old school coaching approach the way they did 10 or even 20 years ago. As one of Belichick's former players said recently, it's nice to go somewhere and not get told how much you suck every day. So I do wonder, will he change at all? Or will people just kind of know that this is him? Will be able to be married in a good way?
I don't think it's going to work because of what you just said. I mean, I coached a lot of the kids that are in college now are kids, like they're all age groups that I've coached. And there's just a different way of coaching kids nowadays because a lot of them can't handle adversity. A lot of them need to be told that they're the greatest thing on the face of the planet. And you have to really mix in like when you critique and then also still pick up the kid at the same time. And it's a very difficult thing to do for a lot of older coaches. That's why Saban's not coaching anymore. It's why Gary Patterson's not coaching anymore. It's why Bill Belichick's not coaching anymore. It's why a lot of these coaches decided to leave. I mean, there's a lot of ass kissing you have to do as a college coach to try to convince 18-year-olds to go play for you.
Yeah.
And you have to tell them they're the greatest football player that they have ever seen. Otherwise, you're never going to get these kids. I'm not kidding. I mean, if you look at, I just saw this kid in this linebacker in Florida who entered the transfer portal. He demanded Florida give him $45,000 a month. He guarantee him a starting position outside linebacker, guarantee him the ability to play on all third downs and get more snaps in the rotation. Florida's like, no thanks. We'll see you later. But that's like the mentality of a lot of these players right now in college football. And you're going to take a guy that was probably never like one of those coaches before, and he's going to run your college football program. I don't see how this works out for Bill Belichick. I understand why he took the job. I think his agent looked around to see if any NFL team wanted him, and the answer was probably not. And so he got the best next offer, which is North Carolina. North Carolina's hiring him because it's a name. Now everybody's paying attention to North Carolina football.
We're talking about North Carolina football.
Yeah.
Why? On a
show.
You know, I'd be talking about them after the New Mexico Bowl because that's week 1. You know, lock in Frogs, North Carolina. But other than that, nobody else cares.
Right. And on one hand, I was thinking like, okay, modern college football is completely different than it was before. So maybe having a guy who had years of experience as an NFL general manager, he was the president of football operations in New England in addition to being the head coach. Okay, he's probably, in that sense, better skill-setted to be able to handle, okay, we're going to have this much of NIL budget and where are we going to allocate it and so on and so forth. And that multifaceted, you're not just coach, you're CEO, all of that. He's got experience in all of that. But instead of guys that have been drafted into the National Football League where your career expectancy is 3+ years and the ability to be that hard-ass coach is working because you have that pressure, what Braden's just said and spelled out for y'all is 100% it. First off, he has to be in the living room of 17-year-olds. And yeah, he can hold out that powder blue check from UNC, but if they think that, and for some people, oh, it's Bill Belichick, but every year that fades.
Yeah.
You know, every year that fades. There's more dynamic human beings maybe walking into the room than the guy who's got the name and has got the powder blue on. So then you're managing 18 and 19-year-olds and trying to keep them there and all. I just don't see it.
If he has some success or some like good culture early on, then I think you can really lean into, he's Bill Belichick. He's like, you know, legendary. He's Tom Brady. He's Super Bowl champion over and over. He can help your son get to a better future. He can be a conduit to the pros, or, you know, getting the best out of your kid. And I've heard the thing about he can coach every position. He's very well versed with everything that goes on inside and outside a club, on and off the field. But as you know, and as Brandon knows, so much of it is not about coaching these days. It's about all these other things. And I've heard that he can be very funny, very dry sense of humor, very relatable. He is dating a 26-year-old or whatever. Maybe all of that somehow plays in. But on the other side, maybe it's also a complete train wreck because you just can't, really change a person maybe who's necessarily 70, 72 years old. So, but maybe they like him the way he is. I don't know. Maybe that will be endearing to some people.
I could see him doing, like Jake said in the chat, I could see he's a very good talent evaluator.
Yeah.
And I could see him finding talent and then having other people go recruit for him, and then like Dion does, and then he's just the coach when he's there. But, even with like Dion's had success at Colorado this year, compared to last year. But even that, I mean, knowing some kids that have gone and played for his program, he runs that like an NFL program. And what he does is, their compliance office is filled with just all this paperwork of getting kids out of there because he cuts guys like it's the NFL and goes, okay, so-and-so will take care of your travel. And the kid's like, well, I still got like 3 more semesters of I guess I still got 3 more months of class. And then Colorado's like, we can't get rid of these guys. They're enrolled at the school. You can't just get rid of them. So I'm curious to see how it goes. He's bringing in Lombardi. What's that guy's name?
Vince.
It's not Vince Lombardi. It's one of it's.
I mean, about
he
the
used
same
to be
You could bring in Vince Lombardi with one of the Super Bowl
He used to be a
trophies.
GM in
guys
the
mean Vince.
NFL. He was a longtime GM in the NFL. Lombardi.
Ernie Lombardi.
Oh.
Nah, he's on TV and stuff. I'll look it up in the break. I
Michael
forget.
Lombardi?
He's bringing in Lombardi.
Michael
that
Lombardi, I thought was.
I think it's Michael Lombardi.
I think it's Michael. Yeah,
Yeah,
he joins
he's bringing
Bill
him in to
Belichick
be
as
the
the new GM.
Right, so he's going to
He's
take
been
care
on
of the
TV a
GM
while,
stuff.
yeah.
Only took me 3. Not bad. Didn't have
One of
3
the
strikes.
Lombardis.
Not bad.
Anyway, so he'll be the GM, which is very popular in college athletics now. So maybe
Yes.
he'll handle all the BS stuff, and
Maybe that's
Bill
the-
can coach.
Maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's the ticket to him. Maybe he knows that. Maybe he's self-aware enough to know that. I better surround myself with the people who will be able to do all these things.
I think
I'm
there's
never going to be cut out for.
I think there's an appeal for some players to go play for him.
Yeah, I would agree with
the
that.
NFL experience, and this is what it's going to be like in the NFL. If I want to go pro, this might be
Yeah.
a good spot. He's got a lot of connections, right? I could see that being a deal. Now, if you're just chasing a check, I don't know why you would ever want to play for him because you have to deal with a lot of accountability. And
Yes
kids
or
don't,
no?
Kids don't like
Yeah,
accountability.
Yes or no in the bumper
A lot of
around the
discipline.
room. Does Belichick make it to the 5th year of his deal?
No,
Yes.
No.
I don't think he does. I think he passes it to his son first.
Oh.
I don't know if he makes it 2 years. Tough world, college
I
football.
think he makes it at least 3, but I'm
He'll
going to go
make
all
it
5.
3.
I'm going to go all 5.
With that, we've made it to the end of hour number 1. When we come back, our takeaways from the winter meetings that were. Annie and Elsten on the Fan. Welcome back, everyone. It's hour number 2 of Annie and Elsten. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan, presented by T-Mobile. Head to T-Mobile.com. Get a great deal on an iPhone 16 Pro. Annie Heilbrunn, Craig Elsten, and Braden Soprenet with you. Roll until 2 o'clock, coming to you live on 97.3 FM radio. We are also streaming worldwide on the Odyssey app. Free to download, free to use, AUDACY. Welcome to all of you. We are also a podcast. You can find us on any one of your podcatchers in your phone, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, etc. Find Annie and Elsten, search for that. If you're there, if you're a podcast listener, thank you for being there. Please drop us a 5-star review. Quick little positive written review wouldn't hurt as well. And we are a YouTube video show. We are coming to you every single day in every single way, including on YouTube. 97.3 The Fan is our page. Search for it. Find it. If you're there, thank you to everyone in the chat, even though sometimes you are the straw man that we like to beat upon over the course of the show. Thank you for being there, and hit our like button there. Like, subscribe, share, all of that allows the YouTube algorithm to better help us along the way for the Annie and Elsten program. Appreciate all y'all. Okay, we got into this a little bit last hour as just the discussion of the Padres' finances morphed and metastasized. But the winter meetings are over. Everyone's gone home. We're getting introductory press conferences apparently today, right? We get Soto today.
It sounds like Soto press conference today with the Mets, and it looks like Willy Adames with the Giants.
Willy Adames as well, okay.
Well, the Giants are setting up for something. I imagine it's him.
Yeah, I mean, or Winter Wonderland. I mean,
right. It's in a presser room. They've got the backdrop and the stage, the little water bottles on by every seat.
I think it's for Willie. I'm just going to guess it's for Willie. So that's happening. All of those things are taking place. So what do we see? Like, what are our actual takeaways? We know that the contracts were signed. We know that the trades were made, like Garrett Crochet going to the Red Sox and Jake Berger going to the Rangers and Andres Jimenez going to the Blue Jays. You know, there were some significant trades made along the way. My first and number one takeaway from the winter meetings, which is something we've talked about each of the last 3 days, so it shouldn't be a surprise. As opposed to the old Hamlet, to be or not to be, in today's Major League Baseball, it's TV or not TV. If you've got a stable TV deal, if you've got those plum deals where you own and operate your regional sports network, if you're the Dodgers, if you're the Yankees, the Mets, the Blue Jays, you have a spending advantage. That the Cubs, you have a spending advantage that's real, it's tangible, it's cumulative, meaning year over year, your gap is growing. Because if teams that used to get $60 million a year are getting 30, while other teams that were getting 340 are still getting 340, you can see what's going on. The gap gets wider each and every year. The deficit grows each and every year. The opportunity for the rich team grows each and every year. And to me, Annie, that's what we witnessed. We saw the big money teams spend big money. Yankees get Max Fried, right? The Mets get Soto. Yeah. You know, the Dodgers made their big moves with Snell. And for everyone else, almost nobody signed.
And I think that that's kind of what you're looking at as things trickle out of those winter meetings. I mean, you can definitely do some legwork there, right? Like you can get closer to figuring out, is this something you want to do in terms of a trade? Do you want to put up big money for this person? And then you sort of wait. I mean, sometimes it's a waiting game to see more dominoes fall off the board. For example, Corbin Burns or whoever else they might be looking to go in whatever position they're looking at. And then you kind of see things heat up. You know, I mean, it's such a tricky thing because you don't want to be too far ahead because you want to hold your leverage wherever you can, but then you don't want to be too far behind where a lot of these teams have traded and you've lost the ability or the opportunity to make something happen with them. I think that that's what you're looking at now. I don't know if you're not a big market team, at least the reporting that we're seeing out of the winter meetings is you're going to be looking for trades. And so how will those dominoes fall? I mean, they can fall, as we saw, they can fall all spring. They can fall all spring training, you know? Correct. So I think that you got to kind of be patient with this process as things go forward.
Couldn't agree more. For the teams that don't have TV, it's going to be belt tightening. It's going to be, telling all of their fans, trying to educate their fans on what the realities are of the situation. But when I hear someone like an Alden Gonzalez who covers LA for the Athletic on with the boys in the afternoon yesterday, and that was one of the first things out of his mouth was look at the RSN differences, look at every team that went to $700 million on Soto. Every single one of those teams has an RSN that they own and operate. I didn't add the Red Sox, but the Red Sox are right there in that group, and that's why when Boston trades for Garrett Crochet, who's not going to cost a lot, they're still talking about let's go sign Corbin Burns, let's go bring that extra pitcher onto the fold. We need it to compete with the Yankees in the AL East.
Yeah. I just want to be cautious of this is what I hear on the other side from agents and players is sometimes they can use that TV thing a little too far. Let's not pretend like these teams don't have money. Yes, they're losing. Sometimes, you saw some of those contracts come out for teams that ended up either going back to Diamond and renegotiating or leaving Diamond altogether. Just like the Padres, they were making sometimes $80 million a year, $70 million a year from that TV deal. And of course that's going to hurt. Think about how many free agents you can sign or what you can do with that kind of money now that you look at it from that perspective. So I'm definitely not saying that it doesn't hurt. How far these teams could push the limit, I don't know. I don't know that with the Padres. I don't know that with another team. And how much will they use the TV thing as a deterrent to why they don't want to spend money, but they can, also is something that I'm not sure of. But it is true that if you're an owner, I think it's fair to say if you're an owner or someone who's managing money, you should be looking ahead to a new CBA. You should be looking ahead to, I don't know where this TV situation is going to be in a few years. And you have to kind of at least put that into your bank of decisions in terms of how conservative are we, and then how much do we just let loose? There's probably a middle ground somewhere there too.
There absolutely is, and if we were in the Central, Annie, then it would be a completely different situation. It's so much more sharply in focus for us because we've got the absolute extremes in our division. We've got two teams, San Diego and Colorado, San Diego, Colorado, and Arizona, which are under the MLB umbrella, right? Their broadcasts are being created by MLB. The clubs are responsible to pay for their talent. The clubs are responsible for finding the commercials that aren't there on the network and selling them. And then you've got one of the three single biggest benefactors to local television, Los Angeles. And you've got the Giants, who have a perfectly good and stable, so far, cable situation with NBC Sports Bay Area. So you really do have two halves and three have-nots in the same division as compared to other divisions where I think your point is extremely salient, where Pittsburgh and Kansas City, we could name teams, Cincinnati, et cetera, Florida, are teams that are willing to talk about that while really not actually investing in their team.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you look around, to hear the Cardinals say we're going to rebuild and this isn't going to be a year that we're even, trying to get to the playoffs necessarily because we've got to cut back, we've got to move some money, we've got to move some contracts. This is an organization that before last year never had two losing seasons back to back, or I think two below 500 seasons or something like that. It was some crazy stat like that. And now they're coming out and saying, whoa, pump the brakes. We got to figure some things out, So you're seeing it happen around the league. At the same time, there are teams that are making moves, and there are teams that I think will spend some money. And as we get closer to spring training, I don't think you're just going to see trades and the Mets making deals. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be some money spent here by teams. It's just not necessarily happening right now. I thought Saris, I think it was Saris this morning that said they're actually spending a lot of money. This is a good market for them. He said something about why this is a year that he thinks that, teams will be spending a lot, and I don't know. I guess it just depends on what your situation is.
Well, we're not spending at all, so we don't need to project our thoughts onto every other team. I'm sure other teams are spending. I'm sure the Giants are going to spend, and that's what gets you nervous as a Padres fan, and that's where I'm willing to entertain concern, not the doomerism that we sometimes get thrown at us, but concern, which is that obviously LA has already positioned themselves as the number one team in the league.
Yeah.
And then the Giants are improving from a position of mediocrity. But I don't forget that the Diamondbacks were the team that we were wrestling with most of the year, and that we thought almost the entire season it was going to come down to the last three games of the year between San Diego and Arizona. It did for Arizona. They wound up not clinching the playoffs against us in the final weekend. But really, the Diamondbacks are still right there, and they still have a young core, some of whom took a step back last year, which means they might be ready to take that jump forward again in their third year. And so when you see your closest rivals improving while you stand pat, it feels like you're falling behind.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Diamondbacks are a good example because the Diamondbacks have moved over to MLB Media. They're in the same position as the Padres are. They don't have a full stadium every night. They aren't setting record crowds for the last 2 years like the Padres have. I don't know what their payroll is going to be. I was just trying to actually look up maybe what they were last year. I think that they've always kind of been kind of like around the Padres, but sorry, now I'm really curious. But yeah, I think that the Diamondbacks are a pretty good example of that because they've also made some decisions that they don't really necessarily like that they were hooked into in terms of contracts. But with their farm system, what do they got cooking? You know, maybe they have guys that they feel like they can bring up for a much smaller fee than they would have to go out there and get someone.
Yeah. Let's keep it moving because the biggest have made the biggest move. Juan Soto signed 15 years, $765 million, $75 million signing bonus, 5-year player opt-out that the club can cancel by triggering a $4 million a year raise for the final 10 years of the deal. It's the most gargantuan American professional sports contract that anyone has ever seen. And I do think that for Steve Cohen, a hedge fund multi-billionaire, he was just willing to say yes and cross every line that every other team was unwilling to cross. And you were bringing up during the break the now pretty well-reported story that Juan Soto demanded a suite at Yankee Stadium. And the Yankees said, hang on, we had Derek Jeter, the captain, for however many years, and he paid for his own suite every year. We have Aaron Judge, the captain. The captain pays for his suite every year. If we give you a suite, we've changed, decades of tradition with the New York Yankees. What are we going to do? And then Steve Cohen's like, oh, yeah, that's cool. All right. Like in his mind, he's just like, okay, well, let's see. We get the $250,000 for this suite. Okay, that's another $250,000 into the deal. All right. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here you go on.
And Brian Cashman said that he doesn't think that was a determining factor just because of how much Juan Soto was being paid, that he could afford the suite if he wanted it. But who knows? It could have been. But I love it. Brian Cashman made up he told a story about another free agent that he was in on and how it was reported because he went and he secured the deal at the guy's house that, he drove it home by going to his house and he made it happen. And he's like, I hit the guy over the top of the head with a crap ton of money. And that's why he signed. You know what I mean? Yeah, I went to his house, but like the way the media reported it, it was like this amazing thing. And the truth is he got more, he got a ton of money from us, And so I think that it's a good perspective to have sometimes because we hear all these stories, but we've seen the reporting on Juan Soto. Maybe part of that was true. Maybe he wanted that kind of red carpet treatment with the Mets, which it sounds like they were very willing to give him, that he wasn't going to get necessarily all the way with the Yankees. Mm-hmm. He might have looked at the Mets and said, if I'm going to be hooked to a team for the next 15 years, maybe he thinks the Mets have more of a chance to add more money or more payroll to their roster and have more of a chance to win. Maybe he just, who knows why? There could be, it could be a Francisco Lindor factor. It could be, there's a lot of reasons why he could have chosen the Mets, but that story definitely is going around that maybe it was some of the perks that the Mets were willing to give him that the Yankees said, hey, we've got a precedent here. And I don't blame the Yankees for doing that either. They got a precedent. They're sticking to it.
And the Mets offered one fewer year for more money.
Yes. He's getting right, and all the escalators.
Yes,
I don't know that I don't think that that the Yankees offered that ability or the opt-outs after 5 years or the no deferrals. The ability to get to $800 million.
Right.
Those are all things that I don't think that the Yankees offered that the Mets did.
Well, we can put to bed forevermore, the garbage narrative that was out there that the Padres missed their chance when it came to Juan Soto. That was a nonsense lie. It was a lie. It was because really, what is a lie? It's when you're not telling the truth. It's not when you think maybe, but you say something. It's when you know. And a year ago, 2 years ago, Scott Boras knew. He knew that Juan Soto was going to market. He knew that Juan Soto was going to make the maximum dollar to the dollar. That's why he didn't make a deal in Washington, a beloved franchise where Soto loved to play there. The franchise loved him. They gave him what would have been the biggest contract in baseball history. If he had agreed to it, it was $100 million more than what had currently been the highest baseball contract at the time. And Soto was like, nope, see ya. And then he came here and he said the same thing, and he went to New York and he said the same thing. And as a result, he'll be on the Mets, his fourth team in 4 years. And I won't be utterly stunned if at some point in the contract he's not a Met, but in a way I would be, because they just gave him so much money that almost no other team in baseball could ever even afford to pay him if they even wanted to get his deal. So Soto set a new bar, shattered the ceiling, shattered what was the previous ceiling, and in fact pretty much inverted MLB's talent pay scale, because Shohei Ohtani had broken it,
Yeah.
but he was $700 million. But he pitches and hits and has the single biggest corporate sponsorship hook to him of any player in the history of the sport. Soto does none of those things. He hits. He doesn't pitch. He doesn't bring. People aren't going to spend $100 million on Soto sponsorships. The Dominican Republic isn't going to start pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into the Mets coffers for tourism and travel and all of their giant multinational corporations, because those things don't exist. It's a third world country.
And if this cripples Steve Cohen and the Mets from the ability to do anything in the future, if this makes it so that they cannot make moves to make their team better, then this will be an albatross that he has to bear for years and years to come. At this point, this looks like something he could afford, and the Mets could afford, and they can still build around him. To me, Juan Soto doesn't change their entire team. Juan Soto makes their team better, but he's going to have to find all kinds of other spots. If we find out in years to come that the Mets are being more conservative, they're not spending that much, they really need XYZ, but they can't make it happen because of all the money they sunk into Juan Soto, this is going to be something that's going to be a big, X over kind of what Steve Cohen wants his legacy to be. But Steve Cohen is interesting because he's really tried a lot and he's failed a lot. And I think that he's still very invested in trying to bring a winning product to New York and to compete against the Yankees, which is a very difficult thing to do in that market, and to try to give fans there something to get excited about, a reason to want to come to Mets games. And I can't blame him for that. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do as an owner and what he has the ability to do. And I don't blame Juan Soto for following the money. I hear so much stuff about loyalty. I just want to say, the teams aren't loyal to the players necessarily. So if you're going to talk about the players should be loyal to the team, hey, look around at all these teams that will cut you in a heartbeat, that will go take you to arbitration and fight with you over $1 million and say all the things you did wrong. I'm not saying that they're doing something wrong either. That's what they have to do. The team has to find a way to get under their bottom line or make things palatable for their books. But when you talk about loyalty, make sure to include the teams also, because the teams aren't always loyal to the players either.
The next big domino to fall, and how the market has now turned on its head and maybe given San Diego a way to play back in to the market. That's going to be in our next segment here as we continue our takeaways from the winter meetings. Andy and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Don't let AI dictate your fantasy lineup. Instead, get bite-sized fantasy football analysis in your ears by listening to the Sleeper King podcast, giving you all the fantasy insight you'll need just 20 minutes every day. Every league has a Sleeper King, and it should be you. Follow the Sleeper King on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Takeaways from the winter meetings here on Andy and Elsten this morning. And, we talked a lot in our previous segment about the Juan Soto contract. Again, Juan's going to, show up in a beautiful suit, I'm sure, today.
I hope the Mets didn't pay for the suit.
Well, I mean, in a way, they're going to pay for everything.
I guess you're right. I guess you're right.
I mean, why stop there? Maybe they can hold the press conference in Juan Soto's suite at Citi Field, just luxuriate in there. With that, and with all of the dominoes that followed afterwards, the next one to fall is Corbin Burns. I think pretty clearly he's the number one starter on the market. I would have personally rated him over Max Fried. Fried had a great run in Atlanta. I don't know if the next 8 years are going to be amazing, but he's been really, really good. I mean, he's a really good pitcher. There's no question about it. But Burns has the size. He's got the frame. He's got the strikeout ability. He's got the great cutter. He's going to command a king's ransom, and I could easily see that landing in the AL East. I could see Boston diving in. Toronto's got money to burn. I mean, they're going to overspend on somebody in the free agent market. There's no question about it. They'd be better served doing it for pitching than to just throw $50 million at Anthony Santander or something.
They want so badly to sign someone
They
and to
do.
give their money away.
The poor Blue Jays.
It
They have money.
feels like that old splash thing, So yeah, we'll see what the Blue Jays do. But for Corbin Burns, right? I feel like it seemed like things were heating up.
Yeah.
So maybe for him, hopefully by the end of the week or the weekend. But the Giants are in that mix. The Blue Jays are in that mix. Seems like it's heating up between those two teams.
Let's be obvious. We don't want him to land in San Francisco.
Right.
Right now, the Giants look pretty surmountable. Even with our team as is, you add another ace, it's a little tougher. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's a little tougher. Now, they lost Snell, so, if you replace Snell with Burns, you can kind of look at it that way and go, they already had an ace last year, and we got by, but be much happier if he stuck around in the American League. And really, this is what we're reduced to right now in the free agent market. It's just watching with dread. And like every once in a while, someone lands in a bucket that doesn't hurt us, like Max Fried, and you go like, cool, hope you have a great career. And then other people like Soto land in the Mets, and you go, okay, that's a problem forever.
I saw yesterday that the Dodgers are looking heavily at Tanner Scott. And I went, oh, man. No. But the thing about the Dodgers is you kind of know that they're going that direction anyways. They can afford it. They're also looking at Devin, what's his last name? Devin Williams. Yeah, Devin Williams from the Brewers, right? So who knows? But yeah, you're kind of watching that going, man, that's tough. That's tough because you know how good Tanner Scott is. You know how good Devin Williams is. And you hate to see them go to a contender in your division. So not as crucial for the Giants because the Giants don't have the kind of roster yet, at least. That is, I in my opinion, that even looks better than the Padres. To me, the Padres are right up there with the Dodgers. But the Giants, if they're improving their team and they're getting better, it's just another reason why this NL West is improving and the bar is raising for all of these teams, really, except for the Rockies.
Yeah. And again, building one story off the other. The takeaway from the winter meetings, you start with TV haves and have-nots. You start with what's becoming a split market, a bifurcated market. On one side of the street, spend whatever you want. On the other side of the street, everybody has to hold their purse strings tight and look at their debt-to-spending ratios and check their, TV subscriptions and every single thing else, right? So you start with that. You overlay on that. Juan Soto gets the biggest contract ever, and it's raised the bar for everyone else. Now the free agent market looks toxic to about 23 clubs where they're looking at it and saying, hang on a second, if Soto's getting this and he's a one-way player, admittedly the one-way is incredible, but a non-defender, he's not a pitcher, he's not a base runner, he's only adding on base percentage and power value to our team, essentially nothing else. Well, then what about Santander, who hit 40 homers last year? What's he worth? Soto hit 40 homers. How do we value the power without quite the same amount of on base? What about Profar, who's got some of the on base without all the power? And as a result, Danny, now you have a team like the Houston Astros, a team that's wanted to contend year in and year out, and they look at Kyle Tucker, who's out there in right field, and you can look at his OPS numbers, you can look at his metrics and say that Kyle Tucker brings a lot of what Juan Soto brings, with better defense and better running. And he had a freakish injury last year. It's not something that you'd think would hold him back. Kyle Tucker, a year from now, is going to make a ridiculous amount of money, because if Soto's at 765, where does Tucker now fit in? 500, right? So the Astros, who want to win their division, they want to trade Kyle Tucker.
Right. The thing that I can't wrap my head around is these teams can't afford it. There's so many teams that can't afford these players that it makes me think that once you get past those really high superstars, which probably are overpays in many different ways, right? Or at least, we can sit back and say, not, of course the value is what someone pays you and all that stuff, but in the respect of maybe these other players, while they don't fall to the bottom, they don't fall flat, I just can't see any other team or a lot of the other teams being able to pay these prices. So do they dip to like a more, still high, but a more reasonable high level? You know what I'm saying? Because eventually these players are going to want to go somewhere, and these teams are going to need to make something happen. They can't, not everyone can trade everyone, right? So there's got to be some kind of middle ground here when desperation hits. And that's what I think might happen. I just don't see the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Cubs. Who am I missing? I don't know. But the Red Sox, whatever, like they can't all just sign every player that's out there. You know what I'm saying?
Can't they?
They don't have enough room on their rosters.
Well, at some point they do run out of roster space. I do agree with that for sure.
I think Corbin Burns, is an interesting one for San Francisco because he's from California. And I think Buster Posey and maybe getting Willie Adames maybe could be a bit of a sell to him, you know. But
reunion.
So like maybe there is a intention for him if the money's right to go back home. But once you get past Corbin Burns, right? What does Sean Manaea get?
Right.
What do these guys get?
If
what
Severino
does
gets 23,
right?
That's what I'm saying. So because now the market is turned on its head, every single one of these players. Every one of them, hopefully, sent Juan Soto flowers or something the next morning and said, "Thank you. You just made me money. Like you literally just made me money by signing that deal. You raised the bar for everyone else."
By the way, the Players Association loves that. Thank you, Juan Soto. They'd probably sent him flowers and said thank you.
And one of the things I heard coming out of it was that this was a goal of Boras and Soto to set the new bar, to create a new metric. So again, I say this to repeat. When you've done that, all the players who are unsigned are now in this really uncertain position because their valuation in terms of the market went up overnight, but their evaluation of talent from the teams that are scouting them to sign them didn't go up overnight. Jurickson Profar didn't become a better player overnight. He just became more valuable because the market went up. So you're going to have a lot of teams that are looking at this and going, I really do want... I'm just going to keep sticking with Santander because he's like him or Teoscar. You want to do Teoscar, right? Like Teoscar Hernandez, 33 homers last year, helped the team win a world championship.
Yeah.
He's like he or Santander is the next outfielder that's going to sign. But if he got $25 million last year and had a really good year, and now Soto's getting $51 million, if his asking price is up to $32 million now, well, sure, L.A. could sign him. Toronto could sign him back. But there's going to be a lot of teams that are like, we need that production. We can't afford the price. Therefore, I'd rather empty my farm system to Houston, get Kyle Tucker for a year on a much cheaper deal, right? get that production to my team, I can afford that, and then we can either flip him at the deadline, or we can offer him the qualifying offer next year. We'll recoup a draft pick, right? Like, this is now where baseball's inefficiency exists, is in the trade market. This is where you now have players whose price didn't go up, and so their value to other teams did go up when Soto signed his deal. Cease, I'll keep coming back to Cease. $14 million for Cease, or $30-something million for Blake. $14 million for Cease, or $30-something million for Max Fried. Or Burns, right? Or Minaya. How much are you going to overpay the next guy? Or you could spend prospect capital and get Cease for $14 million. It's why the Padres can recoup talent coming back, recoup their expected value and their equity in 2025 by being active in the trade market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just don't know. I look forward and I don't know. It seems not logical to think that the prices will come down, because prices rarely come down, right? Like, once there's inflation, they just keep going up, right? But this is a matter of the ownership. Like, if the ownership, as long as it's not proven collusion or whatever, if they are scared of the CBA, or they cry about the TV contracts next year, or for some reason there's just not money to go around for whatever reason, the prices kind of dip a little bit, or maybe they're not as high, or you see kind of what happened with Blake Snell last year. You see people waiting around on the market and then kind of signing these pillow deals, or these contracts for 1 or 2 years to try to get their chance to try it again the next year or in a few years or whatever. So I just don't know. It's hard for me to look at what the next few years will be like with them needing to establish the new CBA and because of the TV deals. But yeah, I just don't know who's going to pay all this. Like, it's not most teams. Would you say half the teams, more than half the teams,
over half the
can't
teams,
afford to be making these kinds of contracts as willy-nilly as these big-time teams are.
And so, you know what most of those teams are going to do as we go to break? They are going to wait and sit, and they are going to hope for all of the whales to spend themselves out, just like you talked about. What comes the point where the Mets have filled their positions, the Dodgers and the Red Sox have filled their positions, and the Yankees have filled their positions, and then the Blue Jays and the Cubs fill their positions, and now there's no one left to spend any money, right? Now what happens to that class, that B minus C plus class of free agents, when all the teams that aren't spending now are all looking at you the same way, going, oh, you need a deal, huh? Yeah. You need to land. It's March 12th. You're feeling a little uncomfortable. Why don't we just make you feel more uncomfortable until the moment that you fall into our range? Of course, that happened to Jurickson a couple years ago.
Yeah, you have some leverage. Exactly that. And I bet Jurickson thinks about that. I think it's a different market for him this year. It sounds like there's interest, and there's been phone calls to his camp. We haven't really heard a whole lot of specifics, but I would imagine, based on the outfielders that we've seen already go, that he's had some decent interest in some calls that are lucrative for him, right? But you really do wonder, exactly, like, is this a waiting game now where you're going to kind of leverage the desperation one way or another, whether it's on the player side or the team side, or maybe a combination of both? And you're going to see a lot of those deals coming off the board maybe farther down the line.
All right, when we come back, 2 creative ideas to help the Padres stay right there in the playoff chase while potentially smoothing out their financial situation, or just counting on a lesser paid player to provide a lot more value in production. We'll talk about both of those ideas and broach them with you in our final segment of the 11 a.m. hour, talking baseball with you on Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Hey, did you know? Did you know you can listen to 97.3 The Fan with your smart speaker? You can. Just ask your device, play 97.3 The Fan. Give it a shot. Try it. See what happens. You'll hear our voices. Just like that. Magic. Smart speaker. Do it. Okay. Andy and Elsten, we're back. That one's so short now. I just always feel like I need more on that one.
You want them to elaborate
That's
when they
right.
write the
Just a
script
little
for
more.
it.
Just like, hey, did you know? Well, you can. Okay. Do it.
Just giving a little cushion.
Just go ahead and try. See what happens. Okay. If we understand where the market is, and we're not burying our heads in the sand like only 3 or 4 of our beloved denizens in the chat, saying nothing matters anymore, just singing Queen songs to themselves. Nothing really matters. Anyone can see. You know, I mean, come on. You understand. Hey, this is why you hang on to a cat like AJ Preller, who's got moves up both sleeves and you know, in other places as well.
In other places.
And also in places otherwise.
It's also, you know, it's a blessing and a curse what AJ did last year. He definitely bought himself time. He was on the chopping block, it sounded like, at the beginning of the season. No, AJ Preller said, let me show you what I can do.
Yep.
But just like you in your place of work, when you do more with less, guess what the big boss expects? You to do it more with less again and again and again.
With even less.
Yes. They're like, hey, you got this in you? Let's go again, right? But it's a tough position for Preller, no doubt about it. But he certainly was successful with it last year.
So where could AJ be creative? This is a well-explored discussion topic. Could we do it again? 2 straight years, we've turned a guy from reliever to starter with great success, turning them into top 10 starters. Seth Lugo last year, a Cy Young finalist in Kansas City, but he pitched to like a 3.5 ERA for us, was tremendous. Michael King, under 3 ERA, almost 180 innings pitched, and an ace in the playoffs. What an incredible thing that the Padres have unlocked here. And what did Andy just say? When you keep doing it, what does the boss say?
Hey, do it again.
Do it again. Who else you got? Who can we do it with this time? Well, maybe the most obvious candidate would be Adrian Morejon, who has been in this organization since 2016, who was signed to be a starter, you know, was groomed to be a starter, had injury issues kind of forever, right? I mean, last year was really Morejon's first real full season start to finish in big league baseball.
Yeah, it felt like a huge stepping stone for Adrian Morejon. He has really struggled with injuries. He's struggled with inconsistency. I remember during the season, the 3 of us talked about, hey, he's only, 25 now? Is he 25?
He is, yeah.
Hold on here.
Yeah, he's 25.
25. Yeah. So
25.
I remember we were talking about it in the sense of sometimes guys need a little time. They need a little time to figure it out, right? And we were all also talking about how maybe he found his lane. He was doing very well in the bullpen. He was in more high leverage situations. He would go multiple innings. He seemed like a very important piece for the Padres and someone who you felt like turned a corner and was on a different path now than what the previous years were. And so now the thought is, as we've seen the reporting coming out of the winter meetings, they're eyeing him as maybe making the move to go back to the rotation.
That's right. And you'd need to stretch him out in order to do that.
And would those health problems pop back up? Have they solved those?
Outstanding question. I'm just looking at his splits from last year. I was just kind of digging through this, just a little quick survey, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, he was a little better against lefties and righties. He's a pretty balanced reliever. But he did drop in performance over the course of the year. Mm-hmm. His first half was better than his second half. His August was one of his worst months. It was his worst month of the whole year. September got a little bit better, but he was great in the middle, though. He was tremendous in May, June, and July. So, okay.
And he's been a starting pitcher before.
Right.
It's not like he's making the move for the first time.
But he's never had a full season starter's load. Right. Never.
Correct.
In his career. In fact, he set his all-time high for innings pitched last season was 63. And I think his previous was like 36. So he almost doubled his career total last year.
And just quickly, Garrett Crochet is a good example of this. He was injured for a lot of his early years. He was also in the bullpen, and they had moved him to the bullpen or as a reliever role. And then he ended up being stretched out by the White Sox and having a good year.
Having a great year,
Yes.
and now he is on top of the Red Sox rotation.
And there's incentive for Morejon to look at those prices and what's going on around him and say, hey, if I can stay healthy and I can be pretty consistent, I myself can hit free agency or whatever he's in right now. And in a few years, 2 years, and maybe command those prices that everyone around me is getting.
But for this year, Morejon is expected in arbitration to settle for around $1.7 million.
It's like $20 now
Exactly.
in this budget.
It's nothing. So earlier this morning, and I was listening to this while I was, cutting up the bagel and getting ready on breakfast, I heard Eno Saris on with Ben and Woods, and Eno has been for a long time a Morejon acolyte or more of not his agent, so to speak, but
a fan.
Yeah, a banner holder, like somebody who carries the banner of Morejon.
Carries the torch for him.
This guy could be really something. So the boys asked him about his thoughts on making the switch.
Preller kind of floated the idea of converting some of the team's relievers into starters next year.
Oh, this is why we wanted you on.
One of the names that was mentioned was one Adrian Morejon, who had a really good season out of the Padres bullpen.
My adoptive son.
Yes. What do you think of maybe the potential experiment now to see how that works in the starting rotation going forward?
I mean, I think he has all the tools to do it. He's over time developed, the two fastballs, the changeup to go with the breaking ball. It's a wide enough arsenal. He has enough stuff to deal with a loss of stuff. The only problem I think that anybody brings up, of course, is he's had a hard time staying healthy. But, I wonder if I think there's some guys that, it's easier to keep healthy on more of a 5-day strict schedule than necessarily, you're out there now, you're out there now, you're out there now. So I don't know. I think they should try it, and they're going to have to figure something out, especially the rumor that Dylan Cease is on the block is maybe a way to get under the luxury tax. And, they don't necessarily have a lot of pieces they can trade that would save them money and also get them something back. I think maybe Cronenworth is something they could discuss. I don't think they would get much back, but they could get the cost savings on him. They could trade Arias because it's a 1-year deal, but I think AJ loves Arias, and I think fans do too. So I don't think that's going to be the first choice.
So a thought, and what does he say? He says, I think they should try it, is what that boils down to. You don't know, but I do like the point he raises that it might be harder on someone who has health issues to be pitch 2 days in a row, take a day, pitch a third day out of 4. Now you take 2 days. Now you pitch 2 days in a row again, as opposed to here's your start for this week. And then it's rest, recovery, weight room, running, long toss, back for your next start, and obviously, Ruben Niebla has done a great job of shepherding guys into those innings pitched leaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of make that, like you said, more palatable as the season goes on. You can kind of give it a soft landing. And if they have a 6-man rotation, if they get Roki Sasaki, they're going to need a 6-man rotation because that's how it goes for him in Japan. He wouldn't be able to go 5 days in a row. I heard Ben and Woods talking about that this morning too, and I saw the reporting about that. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I guess AJ Preller has to go forward trying to find whatever he's finding for the rotation now, because Roki would just kind of be a bonus on top of that, right? At least for this year.
Right.
So you can go with that, I guess, inclination, right? Like maybe you make it a softer landing for him, and if you don't end up needing him, he can be a long innings guy, he can be a multi-innings guy, and that's just as beneficial for the Padres a lot of times, right? So there's some stuff that I think, some opportunities there that you could try to explore.
I would be excited because I see Go Aztecs in the chat say I'd rather try Kolek as a starter. Hey, why not both?
Or Hoeing.
Right. Why not? Hoeing's got the worst fastball of the group, so that's the one that I kind of think maybe keep him in the bullpen, low leverage. But why not give both those cats a try? And if Stephen Kolek, who we now control, by the way, we don't have to put him on our roster this year, what if he was starting in El Paso? You know, what if he was building up that arm and building up that starting pedigree back in the minor leagues, whether it was at AA or AAA, and now he is serving as that Randy Vasquez, right, as that option that you can call up and maybe get 10 or 11 spot starts over the year, or maybe Morejon falters, Kolek steps up, right? Like, who knows, what winding road we'll walk down, but I like the idea of both of those guys being built into a starter's role.
Yes, and when you have, and we went through this last year, when you have the pieces in the rotation that you have right now, you have to account for depth. They're not all going to start and end the season the same. You've got to be able to shuffle guys in and out. You're probably going to have stretches just like you saw with Adam Major, just like you saw with Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito. Even year 2 for Matt Waldron or Randy Vasquez, you'd still want to account for depth behind them as well. They just don't have a ton of experience. Like they have more experience than they had last year. So, yeah, I think that you do end up having kind of like a stable, right, that you can lean on when you need to. Of course, the only downside with that is that can be a bit inconsistent, right? But look, they were able to make it work for the most part last year with people that you never imagined stepping up for the Padres when people went down in the rotation.
This is why you heard A.J. Preller say yesterday, again, I like my team. He said those 4 words in order. Yeah. I like my team. Like, he likes this team. He likes the pieces he have. And as opposed to all that doom scrolling we had earlier, like, what's the matter with taking this electric arm and maybe putting him in the rotation? That could be a really exciting thing, as opposed to paying $25 million for whatever is out there on the market to be a mediocre 4th starter. Value. Seek the value. Preller finds it. We're back with the 12 o'clock Sports Fix and all the sports news of the day next on 97.3 The Fan. Lunch hour on a Thursday. Welcome back, everybody. Halfway point of your midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, and it's time for the 12 o'clock Sports Fix. All the news that's fit to speak for Thursday, December 12th, beginning with Annie's baseball report.
Okay.
Wow.
I feel like there should be music or something. Wait,
Yeah,
sorry.
what
Brandon, I was waiting
Yeah,
for
it turned off.
Okay, well, I'm
Gotta
going to
fix
continue
it.
anyways. Charlie
Silly
Morton
machine.
is still deciding whether to return for an 18th big league season, according to The Athletic. If he does choose to play, he may need to find a new landing spot after 4 years with the Braves. The Athletic also writes that Morton and the Braves have not had any recent contract talks. He played this past season on a $20 million club option. The Mets are open to paying down part of Starling Marte's contract to facilitate a trade. There's nothing to suggest a deal is imminent or guaranteed to happen at all, but the Mets could consider the veteran outfielder expendable. They don't necessarily need to trade Marte, according to reports. They're willing to pay to stockpile depth under Steve Cohen's ownership, but the 36-year-old is probably fifth on their outfield depth chart and doesn't have a great path to playing time. The Angels, what would this be without the Angels, this report? The Angels are known to be open to an everyday addition at third base, and Jeff Fletcher of the Orange County Register reports they've at least gauged the respective asking prices for Nolan Arenado, Alec Boehm, and Eugenio Suarez. Am I saying his name right?
Yeah, Eugenio
Suarez.
Suarez.
Yes. I love that name, honestly.
It's a beautiful name.
It is. So, they're in talks with the Cardinals, Phillies, and Diamondbacks, respectively. The Halos are reportedly one of the at least 6 teams to which Arenado would approve of trade, although that's a somewhat surprising development in and of itself because Arenado said earlier that he wants to go to a contender. So I guess he'll have to say he thinks the Angels are a contender if he ends up there.
Hey, fun fact, Annie. The Angels are going to pay $38,571,428 to a man who plays third base on their roster this year. His name's Anthony Rendon.
Well, when you have Anthony Rendon, you have to have a contingency plan, all right?
For the 140 games he doesn't play.
That's right. So that is, can you imagine Nolan Arenado like backing up Rendon or something? I don't know how it's going to work, to be honest.
So we'll move you over to first base,
He said he'd
Nolan,
play first.
until the second
He
day of
said he'd play
spring training.
first, exactly. He
Yeah.
said that he'd move, right?
Yeah,
so.
until the second day of spring training when Anthony says, you know what, my back hurts again. See you in September.
You play third base.
Yeah, the Angels have checked in on him. So
Why
I
not?
don't, I'm trying to see if I see anything about.
It's tire kicking season.
It seems clear that GM Perry Manazian is seeking upgrades at the hot corner, even with Anthony Rendon signed for another 2 seasons.
Well, they need an upgrade, so
That's right.
guy never
right.
plays.
Anthony Rendon's career games played for LA 52, 58, 47, 43, 57. His homers for LA 9, 6, 5, 2, and last year
0.
0.
Oh, Anthony.
0 homers in 206 at bats. Anthony Rendon.
I just love that the Angels are in the news almost
So
every day.
beautiful. So pretty.
Hey, that first year was the COVID year, so he did play a lot of games.
That's a
In that
great
year.
point. 52 out of 60.
That's right.
Holy
How,
cow.
how much did you say he's getting paid?
$39.5 million a year.
Well, it's
$39.5 million a year. Oh my God.
share the position a little. It's all good. Yeah, it's
Oh.
the Angels. It's a good
Here's
time.
Braden with the NFL story.
NFL and college football, since we don't have too much today on a Thursday.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes talking about the upcoming schedule that him and the Chiefs are going to partake in. Chiefs will be one of 4 NFL teams embarking Sunday on a stretch of schedule that will have them playing 3 games in 11 days. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs aren't looking forward to it. Patrick Mahomes said, all you could do is focus on the game and the practice that you had that day. I try to prepare my body all year long for this stretch by tailoring my workouts, tailoring how you practice and you prepare. Coaches do a great job taking care of us on the practice field. We practice hard as anybody, but they know how to how big of a deal it could be with having to play this many games. Chiefs will play the Browns in Cleveland on Sunday, followed by a Saturday game against the Texans, and then a Wednesday game against the Steelers. That third game will be played, obviously, on Christmas Day. Texans, Steelers, and Ravens are the other teams with a 3 games in 11-day stretch. Quote, that's a unique situation, head coach Andy Reid said. You just have to manage it. It is what it is. Got to make the most of it. One thing is you've got to get guys ready for a game, give them the chance to do whatever you present to them. So I help them out now. We've got a normal week right here, so we've got to take care of business. But the Chiefs are not really thrilled that they had to play 3 games in 11 days. That is it's a tough stretch for anybody's body, especially at the highest level. And they won't be the only team doing it either.
It bothers me because they're like, oh, we're so concerned about players and we want to make sure player safety and all this and that. That is the opposite of that.
We're so worried about player safety that we're making the kickoffs terrible. But we're going to make them play in foreign countries and then make them play 3 games in 11 days.
Silly.
Yeah. Well,
Silly.
what are we really concerned about here?
Concerned about the dollar bill.
That's
Dollar
right.
bills, y'all.
Dollar bill, y'all. College football news. Bill Belichick wasn't the only head coach hired today, and former head coaches hired in college today. ESPN college football, and not one of the only guys working for ESPN that gets hired to be a head coach.
Everyone's jumping ship from ESPN.
That's right. Everybody's jumping out of the media realm to go be a coach. I'll take on that stress now. It seems a little bit better than what my situation is, I guess.
We're not Stephen A. Smith. We're not Pat McAfee.
That's right.
We're going to head out.
ESPN college football analyst Dan Mullen, the former head coach at Florida and Mississippi State, has agreed in principle to a 5-year deal to be UNLV's next head coach, a source told ESPN's Pete Thamel on Thursday. The deal isn't signed, but it is expected to be finalized in the near future, sources tell ESPN. Mullen last coached with the Gators in 2021 when he was fired after 4 seasons with a 34-15 record, an appearance in the SEC championship game, and 3 New Year's Six Bowl games. Prior to that, he coached 9 seasons at Mississippi State and had a career record of 103-61 over 13 seasons. That guy's gotten fired twice. Mullen joined ESPN as a college football analyst in 2022. He replaces Barry Odom, who left UNLV to take the head coaching job at Purdue on December 8th. So Dan Mullen is back. He's coaching for the Rebs. Former West Virginia head coach Rich Rodriguez is returning to the country roads where he experienced his greatest success as the head coach, with the school announcing he was rejoining the program Thursday.
Wow.
Rodriguez, the current head coach at Jacksonville State, spent 7 seasons at West Virginia, which included 3 straight 10-win campaigns and a Sugar Bowl win over Georgia in 2006. He had West Virginia on the cusp of the Bowl Championship Series title game in the final year before an upset loss to Pitt. After that loss, Rodriguez left for Michigan in a tense split, including a legal battle over his buyout. The funny thing is Annie's boy, Pat McAfee, who's been a big advocate for bringing Rich Rod back to West Virginia because he did play
not my boy.
for Rich Rod at West Virginia, is kind of the reason why he left. If Pat McAfee makes 2 simple field goals, easy field goals against Pitt, West Virginia is going to the national championship, and Rich Rod probably stays. Instead, McAfee misses those field goals against Pitt. They lose. They were 1 game away. They let their rival in the backyard brawl knock him out of a national championship bid. Pat McAfee ends up leaving, graduates, goes to the NFL. Rich Rod goes to Michigan. And West Virginia goes into a tailspin for the next couple of years. So maybe this is
the irony.
Sliding doors.
Your boy Pat McAfee trying to help him out.
Definitely not my boy.
It's your boy.
Not my boy.
NCAA is taking its football championship subdivision title game back to Tennessee, with games at the end of the 2025 and 2026 seasons played in Nashville on the Vanderbilt campus. This season's FCS championship game will be played January 6th at Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas, which will host the game for a record 15th season in a row. Frisco was set to host the game for at least 2 more seasons with an option for a 3rd year, but NCAA officials on Thursday said they had to look at other sites because of a multi-year renovation project plan for the 20,000-seat professional soccer stadium less than 30 miles north of downtown Dallas. Vanderbilt's campus stadium is in the process of its own multi-year renovation that will be completed by next year. The Commodores have played 2 seasons there during the construction, and it has been a funny look to see guys working, steel workers, in the back of the end zone during PATs as they try to build that stadium. But that stadium should be complete by that time. They're going to Nashville, the FCS championship game. That's kind of a fun place to have a championship game. A little bit more fun than Frisco. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
That'll do it for my report.
Well, it's time to give you the most voluminous San Diego FC player acquisition report in the history of the franchise. Because they are busy beavers right now.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's build a team time. This is the time. And we've got not only yesterday's moves, But things that have happened this morning, things that have been announced since we started the fix, they announced a new trade.
Oh,
yes.
they're on the move.
Wow.
So here we go. It was MLS expansion draft night last night. Spotlight on San Diego FC sporting director Tyler Heaps putting this franchise's roster together for the first time. SDFC had 5 selections available to them. They used all 5, but traded 2 of them immediately. Maybe their biggest move, the club selected Thiago Andrade, Brazilian winger from New York City FC, goal scorer, traded him to Toronto. In exchange, Toronto FC gave San Diego FC the number 9 overall pick in the upcoming Super Draft. That's where you're getting incoming college players and young players. San Diego FC already had the number 1 pick for being the expansion team, so now they've got 2 picks in the top 10 in the Super Draft. They also picked up $250,000 in general allocation money, which they've already spent. I'll let you know in a moment. The club also selected and traded Jose Kijima from St. Louis FC, sent the Japanese midfielder to DC United, picked up $400,000 more in general allocation money. Coming to San Diego FC via the expansion draft, being selected and staying here, defender Hamadi Diop from Charlotte FC, midfielder Jasper Lofelsund from Colorado Rapids, and midfielder Hene Gickling Bruseth from Orlando City. In addition, SDFC made a pair of acquisitions yesterday. They picked up who might be their starting goalkeeper on opening night, CJ Dos Santos, who played over 20 matches this year for Messi's club, Inter Miami. They also picked up center back Christopher McVeigh from DC United. Now, today, just minutes ago, San Diego FC announced the club has acquired Colombian defender Andres Reyes from New York Red Bulls in exchange for $600,000 in general allocation money, $200,000 in next year's pool, and a future sell-on percentage. Reyes, who has a U.S. green card, has a guaranteed contract through 2026 with a club option for 2027. Reyes signed with New York Red Bulls in 2021. In his 4 seasons, had 71 starts, scored 5 goals. And San Diego FC acquired 2 2025 international roster slots from Seattle in exchange for $250,000 in general allocation money. That money that they got from Toronto, they flipped it on over to Seattle. Now they can sign 2 more international players. Wow, all of that for San Diego FC in really the last 18 hours, never mind the last 24 hours. Continuing with local teams, San Diego Gulls are on a 4-game points streak after beating Henderson Silver Knights last night, 5-4 at Pechanga Arena. San Diego is 3-0-1 in their last 4. They will host San Jose Barracuda on Saturday night. And the San Diego Clippers are clipping along on the road. They edged Salt Lake City 106-104 on Tuesday. They play them again tonight. The Vegas semifinals are set for the NBA Cup. In the West, it'll be Houston and Oklahoma City on Saturday. In the East, it'll be Atlanta and Milwaukee on Saturday, battling at T-Mobile Arena. Last night, the Hawks stormed into the Garden. They beat the New York Knicks 108-100. Trae Young, their point guard, led the way with 22 points and 11 assists. And then, Annie, at the horn, as the final seconds were dribbling out, Trae Young kneeled on the Knicks logo at center court, and he pretended to throw dice like he was shooting craps in Las Vegas. While he was still keeping his dribble alive, by the way. Pretty impressive. Like down on a knee, like left-handed dribble.
Skills.
Right-handed shooting dice, and then he pretended to shoot him, and then he pretended to pick him up at the horn. And, of course, for that desecration of center court, immediately players gathered together and fought, and then New York's finest came rushing out, and they drenched everyone there in pepper spray.
Really?
And then the New York State Legislature immediately went into an emergency session and moved to make pantomime dice throwing a felony while at center court in an NBA game.
Okay, Ohio.
Actually, none of that happened at
none
all.
of that happened.
The Knicks watched Young do it, and then they
'Cause
shook
that would be
hands.
embarrassing.
Right.
Right.
Because players in the NBA are adults.
They're paid professionals.
And I appreciate a little dice throwing.
Yeah.
You know, little shade.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
just appreciated the dissonance between like what I saw last weekend and then this. Like he does it, and everyone literally like You just watch Josh Hart's just standing there with his hands on
They're
his
like,
hips.
okay,
just
man,
like,
throw your dice. Let's get on with
All
it.
right.
Put the fries in the bag.
yeah, can we get into our locker room now?
Yeah.
Players in the NBA are adults, but what about the coaches? In the West, Steve Kerr back to berating officials last night after a controversial foul call was whistled on a loose ball in the closing seconds. Loose ball, guys are diving on the floor. There was like 4 seconds left. Golden State up 1. Boop. Oh, sorry, not a jump ball. Foul on you. Sorry. Houston's Jalen Green buried 2 free throws. All of a sudden, the Rockets are up 1. They held on for a 91-90 win. Kerr berated the officials. He will be fined later today. 3 games tonight in the NBA. Detroit is at Boston. Toronto's at Miami. Sacramento's at New Orleans. The Lakers play tomorrow. LeBron James is expected to miss the game. According to head coach J.J. Redick, he is away from the club for quote-unquote personal reasons.
Ooh.
He's sorting some stuff out.
Is he okay?
It's a good question, and one we may broach in our very next segment. Meanwhile, last night, just 2 games in the NBA. New York Mike's Rangers, match game champion New York Mike's Rangers, beating Buffalo 3-2, while Ottawa took care of the Ducks big time. It was 5-0 until the very end, and it finished 5-1. Tonight is a robust night on the ice of the NHL with 14 games that you can enjoy, including the Kings putting their 6-game winning streak on the line at New Jersey, where the Devils are 18-10, so that should be a good game. The Ducks put nothing on the line when they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs north of the border. Utah Hockey Club's at Colorado, and that brings an end to today's 12 o'clock Sports Fix. That's it. Segment's
Wow.
over.
Utah Hockey Club.
That's
Still
a foul.
stupid name.
Still a bad name. It'll be fixed eventually.
How do you know
When,
those
though?
fouls
Like,
are on
when's the
you and they're not
deadline?
just on Utah Hockey Club?
Well, I mean, I would hope so. Otherwise, it's just a weird stat line I have. Like,
That's right.
why do you commit a foul at 12:16 every single day?
Every day.
I mean, it's an actual name of an actual team in the league. It shouldn't really be, foul worthy, right? Like, what if we were Utah's #1 sports station?
Well, we're
Oh.
not. So.
We'd be clubbing it up every day. We'd
How
be
many
like,
times would we have to say that?
Yeah. We do the in the club segment. Let's get in the club with Utah Hockey Club,
You could
Well, we'd
put
also
up
be
lights
living
and-
in Salt Lake, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Disco ball.
Well, it'd be snowy.
It'd be colder than it is right now.
It'd be a
I'll tell you
little
that.
chillier than it is right now.
Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Is that? Mm-hmm. How was it?
I haven't watched it, honestly, but it's one of the most dramatic. There's like money laundering and people
Wow.
that actually went to jail, and it's craziness. Yeah.
The original, one of the Jersey housewives went to jail,
Yeah, that's right.
Teresa?
Yeah, Teresa went. She's out now.
Oh, yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's back doing her thing. But right, I mean, I thought Salt Lake City would be a little bit more boring, but apparently they found the
Well,
exciting Salt Lake Cityans.
there's not a lot of stuff to do there, so
Might as well
laundering
launder
money is entertaining. We're going to see Ozark.
Yeah,
Who else lives in
that's
Missouri?
true.
Oh, my goodness.
That's true. That was a stereotype that I projected. That is not really true.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we hit the grab bag with a couple of things we haven't talked about yet today, including San Diego State picking up a win over Don't Call 'em Cal Baptist. And we just mentioned it. What's going on with LeBron and the Lakers? What's going on?
Bronny.
Well, and how does Bronny play into it? We'll talk about that momentarily. Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Listen to Inside San Diego Baseball with Sam Levitt. It comes your way during the offseason, Wednesdays, 7 to 9 p.m. right here on 97.3 The Fan and on our YouTube page. Sam talking all things Padres baseball, keeping you up to date on the latest hot stove rumors. The show moved up one day because of the winter meetings, but back to Wednesday next week. And then we're all off for a couple weeks. For 2 weeks, Christmas week, New Year's week, 97.3 will bring you the very best of National Odyssey programming.
What are the chances, and this is Adam's worst nightmare,
Oh, yeah.
what are the chances that during those 2 weeks, things happen?
Big moves.
Big moves
Never
for the
know.
Padres.
We get a call when that happens,
Probably.
That's
right?
right.
Probably.
We get a call.
Probably.
Hey, guys, I know it's your vacation, and it's really a tough time. I know it's a tough
It's
ask.
Christmas Eve, but
Could you come in for a quick 2-hour show? We just signed a big-time reliever. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's more the irony because I'm sure if we're in town and we can do it, I know
Yeah.
we'd all
we'd
we'd
do
all
it.
be
Yeah,
here,
we'd
and
do
so would
it.
the other shows, and I'm sure we'll pop in if that's the case. But it's more the irony of it. Just
Yeah.
if
it
that's
happens,
that's
I
when
would
things
laugh.
could happen, right?
I
But-
would definitely laugh. Mitzi's been telling me, like, hey, we need to do, because they've got the same 2 weeks off.
Oh, really?
So, I mean,
Nice.
this never happens. Now, the Sockers play like 4 times, counting this weekend, 4 times,
Yeah.
And 3 of them in that break. One of them the last day of next week, so I guess that doesn't count. But twice during the break, so it's not like we're going to go to Europe or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think we might try to travel between the 27th and the 5th, which are the 2 Sockers games in there. I think we might try to do something different during
Yeah,
that
you
time.
might as
So
well.
if there's a trade at that point, Adam, probably you can get me on the phone. Before that, good chance that you could get me to come in. So good to hear. Speaking of trades, let's do a little NBA, and we can get back to baseball as well. Dan, I never know how to say his name, who writes for the LA Times, Woike. I don't know if it's Woike or
Wakey.
Woike. Okay. Dan, well, he does a great job
Yes.
as the LA Times Lakers reporter, and I subscribe to his newsletter.
He was the Chargers, when the Chargers first moved to LA, he was tasked with being their beat reporter.
Ah,
But he really loves the NBA. And when he got that opening to go back, he went back.
well, I think he had a great newsletter today, bless you, talking about the speculation around the Lakers and LeBron James. So if you haven't paid close attention, LeBron and the Lakers got off to a good start through 10 games. LeBron was playing really, really well. Of course, Bronny was around. He was talking about and said publicly he wanted to play all 82 games this season. Then he had then the Lakers, he stopped playing well for himself.
Yeah.
He's barely kept his double-digit scoring streak alive. His three-point shooting has cratered. His defensive numbers have cratered. For the first time in his entire career, his on-court plus-minus, the Lakers are worse with him than without him. Like their plus-minus is worse with him on the floor than it is with him off the floor. That's first time in his entire career that you could say that about LeBron James. So then he had a foot injury. He missed 1 game. The Lakers won it. Then he missed Sunday's game. Personal reasons, Portland, Lakers won. Now he's been away from the team all week, and they're saying he's not going to play on Friday. So what happens when anything happens with LeBron James? Every NBA editor says, let's go.
Right.
Top story, podcast. Hey, guys, can you come in studio? LeBron's missing it for personal reasons. Can we get And so, naturally, someone said on a show, maybe LeBron would like to be traded. And then someone else said, hey, you remember last year when the Warriors sniffed around the Lakers at the deadline asking for LeBron, and the Lakers didn't just laugh and hang up the phone? Maybe there's something there. And then someone else's podcast aggregated that, and then they talked about it. And as Dan Wilkie wrote, the next thing you know, voila, a news cycle has been born. But I thought he made a great point, a couple of great points, as to why this isn't going to happen. And the first is pretty obvious. Bronny. Hello, there's Bronny.
Right.
Like, you did the whole thing. You did the whole thing to get them to draft Bronny. You're going to skip out on Bronny? 25 games into the season? Like, hey,
It doesn't seem like that would make sense.
feels odd to
Right.
me. You know? Dissonant. I'm not hearing
These
a
two
chord.
things don't match each other.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a chord here. I'm hearing disharmony. Here's the other one. LeBron James signed a new contract extension last offseason. It includes a no-trade clause. Why would he have included a no-trade clause if 20 games later he was going to be like, actually, how about a yes-trade clause? You know,
Yeah.
like none of it adds up. And Wojcicki's point is that he doesn't actually believe what most people are laying on top of LeBron, which is, hey, LeBron's got to win. He needs to go to the next spot because he's got to win one more championship before he's done. Wojcicki's point is, what about anything he's done has indicated to you that that's his direction, as opposed to his direction is to finish in L.A. as the media mogul he is,
Right.
with Bronny on the team, play it out, take the Lakers' money, and retire.
I mean, that's what I thought we were all on the same page about. He has his entertainment set up there. He has gone into the world of business and entertainment there as much as he's done basketball. He's obviously been public about these ventures that he's had. He's got his son as part of the team now, and he's got roots there. I mean, it to me doesn't seem like that's like he wants to deviate from that.
At all.
And he's
Now-
already accomplished so much. I mean, what more does LeBron accomplish?
No, I mean, I think, honest to God, the gold medal in Paris was the last thing LeBron's going to accomplish.
Like, not that he
in his
doesn't
career.
want to do more, but like, is he chasing things now the same way he might have chased them 10, 15 years ago? Probably not.
Probably not. I think the odds of him missing the All-Star game for the first time in his career are real this year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, honestly, he shouldn't
Yeah.
be an All-Star this year. There's no way he's one of the 12 best players in the West. There's no way. Even that he is LeBron, there's no way he's one of the 12 best players in the West. But I think it's just a really good point, and it's not even necessarily a diss of LeBron, as opposed to when you're at that stage of your career, 40 years old, are you really always chasing like a fiend, which is what, of course, everyone in the media that is in that fiend mentality always, that's what they want, that's what they expect, that's what they assume. But why do you want to assume that to be true? LeBron's house is right there. His son is right there. Do you think the Lakers are going to hang on to Bronny if LeBron forces his way out of town?
I doubt it.
Like, I feel like he'll be dropped like a hot potato. Like, by the way, we never thought you were any good. Sorry, kid. See you later. You know, so
Just at this point in his career, what he would want, I find it hard to think that he would want that. He would want another move, another.
yeah. And it would feel icky in a way if he went up, hey, I'm ring chasing. I'm going to go come off the bench for Golden State because I'm ring chasing now. I've won all the rings I've won, but I'm going to chase. You know, I'm going to jump on a Boston. You know, can I get on your bench? You know, because I want to ring chase.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, honestly, the one place I would accept it would be Cleveland. Cleveland is really good this year. And
that's obviously his hometown.
that's his
and-
home. He's got a home there.
Right.
So if it was like, hey, you know, come off the bench for Cleveland,
Maybe.
maybe.
And Bronny's just going to have to figure it out. I don't know if that's a package deal. So, Bronny, you're going to have to hang on and show him something in that G League.
We've acquired the entire James family, the eligible James family, LeBron and Bronny, for future considerations. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send that one down the river. Now, here's the other one that I thought about this morning. A story came by. You know how stories come by on the story.
Floating down the river, it sounds
on
like.
Yes, on the Story River. Just see what's floating on by, like the little sushi trays, you know, at Harney's Sushi, just floating on by. And you're like, oh, I'd like that one. And this one was about a guy that I kind of forgot about. And I feel like a lot of people maybe kind of forgot about Trevor Story. Trevor Story was right in our face for years as a Rockies all-star, right?
Yeah.
As a really competent, accomplished two-way shortstop.
Yes.
Really good player. He signed after 2022 with the Boston Red Sox. He got a massive deal to play for the Boston Red Sox, and he has been hurt and hurt and hurt again for 3 straight years. Trevor Story has just had one problem after another.
He was so promising. I mean, I remember, obviously, the Padres playing the Rockies, and Trevor Story was the big deal. I mean, it was the wagon that the Rockies were going to be hitched to.
Right.
Until obviously they weren't.
Until they couldn't, right? And then everyone was like,
Then
okay.
it wasn't.
And then it wasn't. But he he was hitting home runs. He was their star player. Like there was a high upside for Trevor Story.
Well, his first year.
All those little puns that they would do.
Yes.
What a story when he hits a home run.
He came
Never
out
ending
like,
story
he had
for
tons
his
of
hitting
those.
streaks.
He had tons of those at the beginning. He almost had like a record, right? Didn't he have like 9 home runs
Something
in his
like
first
that.
something games? I remember watching him do it against the Padres at Coors Field in person.
Mm-hmm.
Brand new Trevor Story. Just like, oh, this guy rakes.
Yes.
37 homers in 2018, 35 homers in 2019.
37 homers.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
As a 25 and 26-year-old, remember, you get worse and hurt as you get older. In Boston, his first year, he had a 2.5 WAR season, 16 homers, 66 RBIs, but his OPS dropped to 737. He has spent the last 2 years being hurt. He took a major shoulder injury that held him to 43 games in 2023 and held him to the last 26 games of last year. He didn't come back till September of last year. But he did come back in September of last year. And he was healthy. And while, he's got to get his feet under him, he's basically missed 2 straight years. Like, he did finish strong, and he is projected to be the Red Sox shortstop this year. Now, Trevor Story makes a lot of money-ish. He makes $22.5 million this year, 25 next year, 25 in 2027. There's a team option for 2028 for another 25, or you buy him out for $5 million.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 50, 72, $77.5 million he's owed over the next 3 years if you bought him out. Xander Bogarts, our shortstop, Boston icon, multiple World Series champion, 3-time All-Star in Boston, has had a not dissimilar time in San Diego, where he's had injuries that have derailed 2 seasons, and he has not performed to the level that he did when he was a 25 and a 26-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I just had the crazy thought, because if you look at the numbers for Story and Xander, for 3 years, they're a straight wash, right? Xander makes $25,454,545 every year until 2033. Makes the same exact dollar total. One year it goes up to 546, 1 year it goes down to 545. That's it.
Yeah.
So, is there a world where the Red Sox would consider a Story Bogarts swap? We obviously we have to feed a little money into it for sure, right? We have to feed at least a little money into it.
How old is Trevor Story?
He's the same.
They're the same age.
They're the same age.
Same player.
They'll
kind
both
of?
be 32 this year.
I would rather, but you're ending up with the same money.
Same money.
Then I would rather keep Xander Bogarts. Give me your argument for. So you're banking on Trevor Story having a pretty good end of the season last year, more upside sort of thing.
Well, you're done paying him after 2027.
Okay,
Bingo.
okay, that
where
makes
you'd
more
have the
sense.
Red
Okay.
Sox would have to pay Bogart if you did the
The
flip.
contract
that's-
isn't as long. Yeah.
You have Bogarts for 6 more years.
6
past
more
Story.
years. 6 more years. And $150 million more dollars.
Well, how much money would you pay on that contract?
70?
70 million.
Xander and 70
So
for
that-
Story.
That means you're giving them an extra.
You're basically paying
2
40% of his contract for the final 6
you'd
years.
You're giving them an extra 2. You're still paying for 2.25 years after that. So So you're really you're trading Bogarts for Story to save 2 years of Xander Bogarts.
You're opening
you're
up
paying-
flexibility from 2028 forward. You're opening up at least, $13, $14 million of flexibility each year going forward. And you're meanwhile not necessarily dropping any of your current win equity, because the season that you would expect a healthy Trevor Story to have and the season that you would expect Xander to have, you'd probably get a very, very similar season. You might get a better season from Trevor Story than you got from Xander Bogarts.
I mean, I appreciate the argument, and I see in the chat, and which is good. There's just various takes to it. It's a change of scenery trade, which I think is a good way to put it. I would entertain this because I'd rather keep Xander, but I would entertain it if it appealed to Xander.
Yes.
Hey, you return home. You get to be a Red Sox. You get to end your career with the Red Sox. If that was something that was really important to him or that he felt like, man, that would be really cool, then I'd be like, okay, well, then make the deal.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel, too. I just, it's one of the things I know our big boss talk. Every time I see him, he's like, have they moved Xander's contract yet? Like that contract. And it's just the length of it.
I get that. I get that you're looking for ways to get around the length of it. And sure, if you're saving, I guess, 13 to 14 million, you're still paying some of his contract. It's a little iffy, right? How good is Trevor Story going to be going forward? But I guess that's not really the point here. The point is more you're shaving years off of the contract.
If Trevor Story is a complete nightmare, then it would be a bad deal.
Yeah, because you're still paying then Xander to play in
You're shaving
Boston.
You're shaving 2.5 years off of Bogarts, because if you're going to give him $70 million, that accounts for almost 3 years.
Right.
Of Xander Bogarts anyway. So reality is you would make that deal and you're just taking let's just call it 2.5 to make it simple. You're taking 2.5 years off of the Bogarts contract is what you're doing. But you're still paying everything but 2.5 years of that for Trevor Story on your team instead of Xander Bogarts.
Yeah. Just something, like I said, it was kind of it was kind of a crazy idea, but hey, when you even heard Bogart's name come out of John Heyman's mouth, immediately I start thinking to myself, how could that even possibly happen? Like, who in the baseball world would be willing to even look at Xander? And I feel like of any of the teams, Andy, there's one team, and that team's Boston. And the one way you'd make it work is you'd say, my bad contract for yours. Each one of these guys, Trevor went from the West Coast to the East Coast. Hey, it didn't work out. Xander went from the East Coast to the West Coast. Hey, it didn't work out. Good intentions. Everyone's happy. No ill will. Let's just go ahead and right this wrong. Flip these guys back to the coast. They're more comfortable. They're the exact same age. They're paid the exact same amount of money. And then it's really a negotiation. I said 70. That's my opening figure, Braden. We'll go back and forth, me and the Red Sox figure it out. But, obviously they wouldn't just say, cool, let's have Xander and we'll take on six years beyond that. Maybe. No, they wouldn't. But, you find that happy medium, and then you gain flexibility and you maybe don't lose performance. I don't know.
I personally just would rather keep Xander, but I see the argument made by other people. I can understand if there is a willing trade market for him, this possibly is the way you got to go about it.
Yeah. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, silly games time. We got just enough time to play a game of Anybody Knows. So we need to open up the phone lines. Xander for Rendon, next segment. No, I never went. No. Hard no. Wait a second. Would they take the whole contract?
Oh, so you're saying you'd have to have 2 years of Rendon at 30-something million.
2 years of awful Rendon contract, but then you're free for 7 years?
Or Xander could come and be close to the player that he was with Boston, and that contract's going to look really good.
Really good. It'll look really good. 5 WAR Xander year, amazing deal.
Yeah. What was his WAR this year? Okay, well, whatever. A 2, 3 year,
yeah.
3, 4 year.
Maybe 1. I will look that up for you. Well. But first, we need a contestant to play Anybody Knows, the game of ridiculously easy trivia. 833-288-0973 is our number. 833-288-0973. Give us a call right now. We'll screen up a contestant, and if you win, you will be in the hopper. It's just a 2-week drawing, too, for a 2-night stay at Westgate, Las Vegas, and tickets to the Westgate Sportsbook for the Madness of March. We come back to play the silly game next on The Fan. The Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino features newly designed premier rooms, part of their $70 million room renovations. Home of legendary Vegas fun. Experience the madness of March as only Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino can serve it up to you with high-definition screens, luxury seating, table service, and access to all the best gaming action. Enjoy hoops action from the best up-and-coming stars on giant HD screens in a smoke-free environment as you thrill to the games that keep us coming back to college ball every year. For tickets, head to WestgateResorts.com. Your chance for a 2-night stay at Westgate Las Vegas, 2 tickets to Hoop Central at the Westgate Superbook. Get you qualified for our 2-week drawing. It's time to play the game of crazy easy trivia, known as Anybody Knows. And today's contestant is going to be Danny in San Diego. Hi, Danny. Welcome to the air. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good to talk to you guys. I'm excited to play some trivia.
Outstanding. Before we do, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
San Diego local. I actually host bar trivia at Bottle Rocket. So, Craig, we got some common stomping grounds. Yeah.
Well, if you don't get 10 right, then I'm going to be really, really disappointed. Okay.
Oh, no, my credibility is on the line here.
I tend to agree. Danny, here's how it's going to work. Braden has a card from the box of the game that we bought at Barnes & Noble, and it's got 10 trivia questions on it. He's going to read those questions to you, and you've got 60 seconds to answer as many correct as you can. The hook of the game is that they're easy, so don't psych yourself out thinking of the most arcane answer like you would with the questions you design for your patrons at Bottle Rocket. These will be straightforward questions. I'll keep score, Danny. Annie will get the same quiz as you, and if you tie or beat her, you are in the hopper. I wish you best of luck as I turn things over to Braden.
All right, first question on the docket. We'll start the clock. In what game is a birdie hit over the net?
Badminton.
Badminton is correct. In which TV sitcom does Steve Carell play Michael Scott, the boss of a paper company?
The Office.
The Office. Before they're frogs, what are they?
Tadpoles.
Tadpoles. Where's a person's derriere?
That'd be their posterior, their butt.
That's right. Name the woodcarver who made Pinocchio.
Geppetto.
Geppetto is correct. What does the W in BMW stand for?
Wheel?
It'd be
Works?
Works. Works is the correct answer.
Works. That makes sense.
What animal is man's best friend?
Dog.
Spicy green mustardy horseradish often eaten on sushi.
Wasabi.
Wasabi. How many pockets are in a pool table?
6.
Mount Rushmore features Presidents Lincoln, Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, and who else?
Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson is correct.
Outstanding work, Danny.
Well
9
done.
out of 10. That seems like a winning score. I think you're both going to get the exact same question wrong. Meanwhile, Annie is on her phone.
Dialed in.
She's locked in.
Locked!
Oh,
Like James
Annie.
Franklin told her to lock the in.
Lock the you-know-what in. I'm
Go
going to
eat
go
your
open the
chicken
door.
basket.
Hang on.
Now, she is so locked in.
Turn. Come on in.
How long do you think a minute is? My Lord.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Doing some deep Trevor Story research out there, maybe? Or-
Yeah, huh? Who knows?
I was deep in some sourcing, some
Yeah,
sourcing,
sourcing.
some saucing,
Sauce.
some
Oh,
saucing.
Spain.
It seemed like that wasn't enough time for the game to occur.
Tangy pepper saucing?
That was like
Some
3
saucy.
minutes.
Mild chipotle kick?
That was a quick. Oh well, I guess we're okay. Well, let's go.
It's
let's
Danny
go.
versus
Yeah.
Annie today.
Danny
Danny's
and Annie.
score is locked. It is time for Annie's score. Here's Braden.
In what game is a birdie hit over the net?
In what game is a birdie hit over the net?
Yes.
A birdie and a net. Net and a birdie.
Get the little birdie.
Not the birdie. It's a CIF sport.
CIF sport. Something
Olympic
about a
sport.
birdie.
It is.
Time on the collar.
It's not tennis.
No?
It's not
It's like
tennis.
it's like handball or something.
It's
badminton.
Badminton. That's what I
In
was
which
going
TV
for.
sitcom does Steve Carell play Michael Scott, the boss of a paper company?
The Office.
Office. Before they're frogs, what are they?
itty bitty cute tadpoles.
Tadpoles. Where's a person's derriere?
Badunk, gadunk, gadunk.
Well, okay.
We accept.
That
They're
accepts.
behind.
Name the woodcarver who made Pinocchio.
Geppetto.
What does the W in BMW stand for?
In BMW?
Yes.
Boss man will drive cars? I don't know.
That's too many for the acronym.
Bavarian Motor
It
Works.
works.
Is it really?
It's works.
Bavarian Motor Works.
What animal is a man's best friend?
A dog?
A dog. Spicy
Sammy the
green,
pug.
spicy green mustardy horseradish, often eaten on sushi.
Wasabi.
Wasabi. How many pockets are at a pool table?
4.
He's wrong.
6.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, there are in the
There's
middle.
2 in the
too.
middle.
Yes.
Middle ones.
Mount Rushmore features presidents Lincoln, Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, and who? Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt, and
Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt, and Jefferson?
Jefferson is correct.
And by a score of 9-7, Danny is the winner today.
Danny got badminton, right?
Yes, he did. He missed Bavarian Motorworks as well. So
Did he have a great acronym name for it?
He said wheels.
he just said
that's
wheels.
it. That's
which makes
actually a
sense.
really
We
smart
only needed
answer.
the W.
Right, but
However-
I extended it to what
That's right.
the other invisible letters are.
Trivia host Danny, you did it. You upheld your profession. You won. Stay right there on break, man. Great. On hold. Braden will get your information during the break. Congratulations. Well done.
Well done. He's speechless.
Oh, no, I just dropped him.
Ah!
I tried to put him on hold and I dropped him.
He was already on hold.
Oh, my God. Danny, call back. And we'll be back with the show after this.
Final hour of the show. Welcome back, everybody. It is Annie and Elsten here with you. Our Thursday get-together on 97.3 The Fan. We're here till 2. Then the Gwen and Chris program will check in from 2 till 4:30. They will then hand things off to Westwood One's coverage of the National Football League. And it's Rams-Niners tonight. Rematch. NFL Network up here is behind you is playing, I assume, earlier this year's game between the two of them?
Yeah.
Appears to me that the Niners won that one. I could be wrong. They're up 21-7 in the third. Did they hang on?
I think they did.
Okay. So we'll see if the Niners can go for the sweep. I don't remember if the Niners can go for the sweep or if the Rams can pick things up. Rams are playing, that tricky, we're in it. We're not great, but we're in it.
Right. Just kind of hanging on.
Yeah. We're good enough to be dangerous. Mm-hmm. We're good enough for a scrappy street fight, but obviously can't win everything. Great question in the chat, by the way. Last segment we chatted through a potential Xander Bogarts, Trevor Story, my mistaken free agent deal for yours move, to which Zemetram in the chat asked the critical follow-up, what would Mike Schilt's nickname be for Story? Because you add a Y to everyone else, right?
Oh.
Toddy and Bogey, right? But when you end in a Y, right? When you end in a Y, in history, what I've seen is that then you get shortened. So Finley was Fins, right?
Stores, maybe?
So I was thinking Trevs,
Trevs.
T-Store.
What about like Storster?
The Storster?
Storster's been hitting it in the cages. He's
Trev.
I don't think he'd call him Trev.
You don't think he'd call him
No.
Trev?
Well, he wouldn't call him Story, though, either.
No.
You're right.
Yeah. T-Store.
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 T-Store, like T-Wade.
Yeah. T-Store.
T-Store, I could see.
T-Store.
That's probably it.
I think we've solved it. Mm-hmm. I think we've solved it. T-Store. Let's see if we can get T-Store over here for Bogey. Stroster. Okay.
Trevi, maybe Trevi.
Trevi.
Yeah.
Trevi. Hey, Trevi. Hey, come on now. How about that movie made? Mm-hmm. Let's not alibi it. Trevi was playing well. Can't wait for some more Schiltisms this year. Your 2 Schiltisms. Let's go. All right.
What about what would Roki be? Sasaki.
My gosh. Oh my gosh, he's got the E sound at the end of both names, so you can't.
Roki, Sasaki, Sasaki.
Rokes.
Maybe Rokes.
Rokes.
Arsauce,
Our sauce. That sounds good.
Arsauce.
Our sauce. Hot sauce. Call him hot sauce.
Roke. Maybe just Roke.
Roke.
I want a roke.
I want to Roke with it.
Roke. Dun, 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 dun.
The Rokester.
The Rokester.
Saucy.
Saucy Roke.
So this is great. I'm sure that they can include this in their pitch to Roki. I'm sure that they can include all these names and
Could
say,
you imagine?
You'll have your pick,
They
buddy.
bring in the 6th intern. Roki, we've been selecting nicknames for Mike Schilt. Would you prefer Roki? Would you prefer Sasaki?
Sasaki.
We've worked on Sasaki.
Sasaki.
Would you...
Wait, no, that's his name. Sasaki.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hot Saki. We could, hot Saki. Well, we
workshop
dream.
it.
We dream on January 15th of revisiting this conversation because I do believe, barring 2 things coming together, a trade happening over the holidays and the obvious confluence of all 3 97.3 The Fan shows take 2 weeks off. Therefore, news must break during that 2-week period because reasons, right? Short of that, and I do think we are putting some real deal energy into the universe by all 3 of us just tempting fate and leaving at the same time.
Yes.
Short of that, I believe it's going to be all talk until January 15th. I think it's going to be all talk until then. Speculation, trade rumor, this, discussion, that. But to me, this is where the rubber hits the road for AJ Preller, for the whole discussion. We've spent years trying to recruit Roki Sasaki, trying to develop a relationship with the Japanese right-hander. We've heard about it. We've heard about the efforts of Nomo. We've heard about the efforts of Yu Darvish. We've heard about their personal relationship, Roki Sasaki and Yu Darvish. We've heard about AJ's relentlessness, his willingness during the Shohei recruitment to learn Japanese, to try and speak in his native tongue to him. And I've got to imagine that that's what's going on right now. That like the Duolingo is getting ramped up on steroids for AJ. He is taking 15 lessons a day right now, and that it's a as Schilt said, using his own words from Monday, a full court press.
It'll be a full court press, no doubt about it. I think AJ Preller was asked about the Japanese. I think he said that there's enough Japanese speaking cohorts around him, but I'm sure he'll flex his muscles a little bit, out of respect, of course. Yes. I see it the same way. The thing about Roki Sasaki, so he's already flown to the States. They're going to do a whole meeting extravaganza with teams at a central location. He'll take a break for the holidays and then probably come back. I don't know if it's going to be something where like, you're down to 3 or 4 teams. Do you meet with them again? Or maybe he already has a good indication, but he wants to hear X, Y, Z. If you go off of Joel Wolf, his agent, if you go off of his face value, he hasn't talked to his client a whole lot about it. So he's not sure where he is, which also gives him a very nice alibi to not have to answer questions very specifically. Okay.
Fair.
So he'll be able to talk to his client and figure that out. But yeah, I'm sure that AJ Preller and his staff are going to go in and try to show him the respect and why they believe he would be a great fit in San Diego, sell him on everything that is good about San Diego and what's great about the Padres, and give it their best shot. I mean, I believe that they did that with Ohtani too. I think that they come in there guns blazing for sure.
Yeah. And until then, literally, I walked into the snack room. Someone was like, "Hey, any news? Any news? Any news?" Like, no. There's not going to be any news because the Padres are penny wise, and that brings me back to this morning and Kevin Acey's latest, his final write-up from the winter meetings, which contained one, I would say, damning paragraph. Repeating that paragraph, here it is, quote, "The directive Preller has is to finish constructing a contending roster while not raising payroll all that much above last year's season-ending $169 million. In fact, the Padres want to lower their current obligations, which are around $210 million, when factoring in projected salaries for arbitration-eligible players." Then he immediately follows that with, "This is a sobering reality when considering the defending world champions are in their division and they are capable of paying whatever they want to whomever they want and do it however they want." Yeah, that's right. We're not playing the same game. The rules aren't the same. The Padres are not allowed to do what the Dodgers are able to do at the snap of their fingers. They don't have that wherewithal. They don't have $335 billion of market like Guggenheim controls to be able to play with. So we're going to be moving some movable things, not to diminish the team's ability to win, but to try and move our pieces around to recalibrate so that we can still win while not keeping the guys that we can find value for in the market to recoup.
And they're going to raise payroll from the $169 million that it ended up at last year. Of course, some of that is the raises,
built-in raises
that these players are going to get, but they are still should end up with a higher number, maybe not as high as 209. It sounds like maybe coming down from that a bit if you read into the reporting, but they're going to have to get creative. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I've seen various reports say they're going to trade Dylan Cease. They're going to maybe trade Luis Arias. They might trade both of them. And then I've seen other credible reporters saying it doesn't seem likely they're going to trade either of them. I just have a hard time figuring out how they will not trade someone and still get that payroll number where they need it to be, because they've got holes on their roster that they need to fill. They need to find another guy for their starting rotation, another at least midline starter. They've got to work on their catching situation, their left fielder situation if they're not bringing back Jerks and Profar, maybe another their bench bats or a DH. I saw it might have been Kevin Story that they want, like a bona fide DH hitter. What kind of person will that be, right? What kind of player will that be? So it's just hard to imagine that they can cut below those parameters that that have been reported, and not move someone to get some pieces back in return that will fill out some of those spots on their roster and help with that process.
Yeah, I see it the same way. And I don't think it is a punt. I don't think it is a step back. It's not what the Cardinals are doing, where they're indicating we're not going to try and win, and so we're just going to get whatever we want from whatever we can. It's as simple as the Padres. I think we're going to realize this more, and it'll settle in more a little bit. It still hurts a little. I think it'll settle in more over the years. The Padres had a beautiful, brilliant owner who knew he was on his last years. He knew that his time was short, and he did everything, cajoling his other owners to join him, right? Taking loans. I thought it was really important how you spelled that narrative out at the start of the show. Peter Seidler just didn't open up a gigantic trunk of cash and pour it on A.J. Preller's desk and say, go get Xander Bogaerts. Right. He had help from everyone around, but the organization followed that lead. For 3 years, they followed that lead of we're going to do whatever we can. We're going to spend whatever we can. We're going to try and get this man a championship before it's too late. And it didn't happen. And that's unfortunate. What can you do? You tried. It didn't happen. When he told us, my voice will speak from beyond the grave, it is, because Manny Machado's here for 9 more seasons. Xander Bogaerts is here for 9 more seasons. Fernando Tatis Jr. is here for 9 or 10 more seasons, right? All of these guys are locked in for years to come. A core is there that is not moving, that you get to build around year after year after year. But in building that, the Padres went over their means, and now they're trying to get to a point where they are within their means, and in doing so, what that means is covering those contracts, right, Annie? Covering those deals year after year after year, and then building around the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think really when you see their lineup, when the roster gets filled out, we were just watching the Juan Soto press conference, and they put the Mets lineup on the TV, the potential Mets lineup.
Right.
Once you got past the first, maybe the top 3, maybe the top 4, it didn't look all that threatening. Okay, I think when you see the Padres lineup, it gets closer to the season, and you see, hey, this is what they're working with. This is the potential. And you look at Manny, Tatis, Xander, Jake, Jackson, whoever else is filling out that lineup, it's still going to look like a pretty darn good lineup. I mean, they're players who need to perform well. I will say that. Like, they've invested in players, and it's on those players to really do their best to try to come back year after year and perform to their potential and to what their contract hoped they would be, I guess you could say. But it's still a good lineup. It's still a good lineup. And it's still good core players. They've invested in that, and how they're going to fill in around the margins and how they're going to kind of close some of those gaps is going to be where A.J. Preller can maybe even help raise the bar and raise the level of what this team could be. He was able to do it pretty successfully last year. I think it is a big ask to always hit on those guys. But hey, you're hitting on a guy. It's a big ask to hit on Juan Soto for the contract that he got. I mean, everybody's a risk, no matter what. And so I think you've got a core that really enjoyed winning last year and getting to the playoffs, and is probably going to buy into that whole message of like, let's build a culture and let's build a clubhouse where everybody coming in knows that we are all for winning and trying to make the postseason, and that's what we believe we can do here, and kind of push themselves forward rather than backward.
Absolutely. Let's take our break. When we come back, some of the other stuff that's going on. And let me just make sure we've got confirmation on this. Yes. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll take a quick timeout. We'll do a quick segment when we come back. And then at the bottom of the hour, we will be joined live by the head coach of San Diego FC, Mikey Varas. He is happy to come back on with us on the show and go through all the moves San Diego FC has done through the expansion draft and making trades, including trades made today. We're going to get into it with Mikey in 2 segments. We're back to check in on Aztecs basketball after this. Annie and Elsten on the Fan.
jamming.
I mean, those were surprising numbers to me a little bit. I thought that for whatever reason, all the talk about kind of what San Diego's been going through, I thought that those numbers would be a lot lower. But that's pretty good, right? Which is great for them. Hopefully helps them recruit other players, or at least keep the ones that they have too.
For sure. Let's see what happens, but best of luck to Coach Lewis. But that is the news. Danny O'Neill is in the portal, so if he does walk out, you need to get another quarterback. He didn't start every game last year for San Diego State, so it's not like they only had one quarterback on campus. Nonetheless, that is a new complication that Coach Lewis is going to have to deal with. Staying on the Aztecs tip, last night at Viejas Arena, California Baptist
Well done.
made a late run to turn what looked like a blowout into a close game. Too close for comfort, but San Diego State does prevail 81-75. And, this is one of those games, I think, Annie, where you see the name California, don't call us Cal Baptist. You see San
We
Diego.
will call you Cal.
Yeah. You see San Diego State and the success they've had, and you just write in a dub, and you figure it's going to be a rout. But turns out Cal Baptist starts 4 seniors and a junior, and they're actually a pretty good team.
It got a little spicy, and it wasn't always pretty, but they pull off the win, and it seems like not a moment too soon because they've got some stuff to work on as they got a little break here, But yeah, I mean, look, Cal Baptist hung with them for sure.
Yeah. Rebounding, bad. Second chance opportunities for the Aztecs, bad. But offense was very good. Defense was very good. San Diego State gets another win. They next up take on Cal at the SAP Center in San Jose on December 21st. So nice little
ACC
break.
school.
Right.
It's a good basketball conference.
Hey, listen, when you go to the Atlantic coast like San
right.
Jose,
That's a tough travel for Berkeley, right? Coming from the Atlantic coast. Oh, wait a minute.
hang
Hang
on
on a second.
Hang on. It's so crazy, man. Stanford and Cal in the ACC. It's wild. Baptist did put the fries in the bag. We
Put the
got
fries in the
dub.
bag, Baptist. This should be what their name is, according to Nate Taylor.
Fries in the bag Baptist.
That's right.
Brilliant.
Are they leaving, though, feeling a little bit better about themselves?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're
Are you
good.
kidding
They're
me?
they're a
Yeah.
good program. They've been good for the last couple of years. They're up and coming in a lot of different D1 athletics. They get good funding. They get they've put together some pretty good teams in a lot of different sports. So I'm not overly surprised that they gave San Diego State a run for their money the other night.
Yeah, hey,
Cal Bap.
good. CBAP.
CBAP.
What would Schulte call
CBAP.
CBAP?
I don't know why Cal Baptist. Yeah, Cal Baptist. This sounds so like. Why do we have to pronounce the entire California? What's the branding philosophy
Do
on
they
that?
not want to be seen as like Cal Berkeley or something?
I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. Just the same as like Northridge doesn't want to be called Northridge anymore. Just call it CSUN. Well, nobody
I'm not
knows what that
calling it
is.
CSUN. I don't
Nobody
know.
knows what
I
that
don't-
is.
yeah,
I don't know what CSUN is. Cal
on-
State Northridge.
It's on
Can't
the
call them
surface
that.
of the sun.
Right.
Well, that's your school name.
Sounds like a lotion or something.
Why can't I call you by your school name?
Yeah, what's the SPF on that CSUN?
Right.
And the CSUN. And the other thing too is like Long Beach doesn't have a mascot. It's just the beach. So when
That's
talking,
crazy.
Wait,
That's crazy
does a
to
mascot
me.
come out that looks like a wave?
no,
or
they got a
something?
shark
Or-
as a mascot,
Okay.
but they're
Surfer?
Long Beach State Beach. And so they're like, their SID or whatever is trying to explain to us how you call us. They can call us Long Beach, you call us Long Beach State. You can say the beach basketball. You can call us the beach.
This
But they
breaks
got
my
rid-
heart.
They got rid of 49ers for
Yeah, you should be upset about this.
for
I
reasons
am.
of like they were mean or something. I think. is
No,
what they said.
I'm.
Oh wow.
What?
Yeah, they said the 49ers were not.
They
a
were
tasteful-
canceled.
They canceled 49ers.
The 49ers didn't cancel the 49ers.
I mean,
No,
it's a-
San Francisco didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
But in Long Beach, apparently it was. Yeah, that was like a big problem. But they kept dirt bags.
which is a lovely term. It's a term of affection.
That's
dirt
right.
bags.
Even though it's just a bag of dirt that holds the bases for baseball, that's why they call it dirt bags. But I don't know what these schools are doing
But
with their
now there's
mascot
the beach.
names.
Like,
The
hey,
beach.
The
it's gonna be the beach against
Long Beach State
so-and-so.
Beach. Like Alex Miniak's the PA guy for USD
is he? Oh yeah, for USD.
for
yeah.
basketball, and
Yeah.
he goes like, "Hey, welcome to tonight's matchup between Long Beach State and your San Diego Toreros." It's like just Long Beach State. There's just nothing behind it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
The 49ers Tavern is still down the street from California State University, Long Beach,
Right.
in Long Beach.
But the name was
They didn't change it to the Beach Tavern.
No, I don't know what they're doing. Same thing with CSUN. I don't know what's up with the Cal State
Inglewood.
schools right now changing their names because it doesn't make any sense.
Makes
Even
me
though
mad.
Cal Baptist, California Baptist, is not
Makes me mad.
affiliated.
Makes me sad.
It's stupid.
What do we?
I will call out all the BS on these name changes.
Or
The Cal Long Beach State. What do you
Why
do?
do we have to erase our history, by the way? I mean, like, can we just learn about the gold rush and things that
Yes.
were bad that happened during the gold rush?
A lot of bad people did a lot of bad things, but that doesn't mean they didn't exist.
Hey, the A's don't want you to call them the
Sacramento.
Athletics.
Don't you dare.
Sac
Wait, they want to
A's.
be called the A's or the Athletics?
They want to be
Either
called
one.
either
Okay,
one.
but they just don't want the
They
Sacramento.
don't want a city
No, I'm
affiliation.
No
the
city name.
Sacramento A's.
We're just
Thank
the
you.
Athletics.
It's
Sac
ridiculous.
A's.
The Athletics.
It's the same thing like TCU doesn't want to be called Texas Christian University. They just want to be called TCU. But
But their name is Texas Christian University.
I know it's the same thing, but it's shortened. It just makes it easier. Just calls TCU. I mean, Texas Christian is very much a mouthful, and most people know us as TCU over Texas Christian. So
Niners
Also dumb.
Tavern.
R.I.P. Niners Tavern. Now it's just the Beach Tavern.
George Allen was the head coach of the 49ers. He was not the
They
head coach
could've-
of the beach.
They could have literally come up with different names, though. Like they could have come up with like a team name.
Well, and they've
the
always been
Beach-
the beach. I mean, back to when I was in high school, they
Right,
were the
that
beach.
could be like a nickname though.
embrace
Like
that
you
one. They
did, but
leaned in.
like the Long Beach State Beach, it makes no sense.
No, it's bad.
Name
Bad.
yourself- if your
Beaches.
mascot's gonna be a shark, just name yourself the Sharks.
Right?
What's the problem?
Let's take a timeout. When we come back, Mikey Vadas, head coach, San Diego FC. So many moves over the last 2 days. We'll get you caught up on what they're thinking inside the building. Right after this, Andy and Elsten wrapping things up. Gwen and Chris at 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
1:35 on the Fan. Welcome back. Final segment today of Annie and Elsten. Gwen and Chris checking in at the top of the hour. Let's go right out to our 97.3 The Fan hotline. We are really happy to welcome back to the program the head coach of San Diego FC, Mikey Vadas, giving us a few minutes here during what's been already an extraordinarily busy day, extraordinarily busy night into day for San Diego FC. We're going to sort it all out with the head coach right now. Mikey Vadas joining us on Annie and Elsten. Coach, Craig and Annie here with you once again. Really appreciate you carving out a few minutes for the fans.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, the pleasure is ours. Let's just start kind of broad, and then we'll work into the narrow and the specific. Expansion draft, trades before the draft, trades today. What is your reaction to the flurry of moves the club has been able to roll out here?
Yeah, I'm really excited because every player that we sign, it takes us one more step towards the reality of having a team, right? And when you have a team, you can start training. And when you train enough, the competition will start, and that's when it gets really real. So just really excited with all the moves that we're making, and I think it's a credit to the organization and the sporting director, Tyler, and how he's organized the scouting department. Just a lot of smart people working really diligently on trying to make the best moves possible for the club and the city.
Yeah, just on that note, what was it like for you yesterday? I mean, did you guys have, it looked like a little bit of a draft party? Was it kind of just a realization for you guys as a whole that everything felt a little bit more real getting that roster put together?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a crazy feeling because it's like 3 days where we're basically locked in a room for like 20 hours a day, right? And so you actually don't see anybody. And then all of a sudden you show up to the event to announce it, and the fans are like going crazy there. The supporter group was chanting the entire time. And in fact, like I was having trouble hearing the questions with the people, the announcers right next to me because the fans were so loud, which was just amazing. And I think actually was like the cherry on top for the event, right? Like obviously exciting to announce the players, but like as the coach to see the fans that energetic, that passionate, it was really inspiring.
So you select 5 last night in the expansion draft. 2 of those players were traded right away. You picked up another top 10 pick in the super draft. We can get into that. You got some money. That money wound up, I think, being used pretty quickly because you made a flurry of deals. But 3 players are coming to San Diego out of the expansion draft. What can you tell us about those 3 players?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, like we had this strategy going into the expansion draft of like, can we get 6 players from the 5 picks? And we found a way to do that, right? Through the Thiago Andrade trade, we get a top 10 draft pick right away, plus some money. With the Jose Kojima trade, we fund another trade. And then we were able to get CJ through expansion protection. And then the 3 picks that we're able to keep are Hane, who's just he's a midfielder, kind of like a connecting midfielder, really good on the ball, moves really well. You'll see he's quite dynamic and just like really good coordination. He's someone who works really hard for the team, but has a really good skill set to help us build rhythm with the game. Then you have Hamady Diop, who was the number 1 pick in the draft, and was really highly rated. And by the way, he was number 1 on everybody's board that year. And he's got massive potential. He's coming back from a stint in Serbia, and we see him as a left back who can help, hold the fort down and protect Irving so that our DP can have a bit more freedom in terms of being able to be creative, score goals, make assists. And then Jasper Loffelson, this is a guy I think it can't go understated. He was drafted from college as a fullback. And during the preseason at RSL, a couple injuries in the midfield, and then all of a sudden he's got a midfield career in MLS. That says a lot about the guy in terms of how skilled he is, how smart he is, but also what type of teammate he is. We're actually drafting him back to his position, and speaking to him, he's really excited for that because he feels most comfortable there as kind of an attacking fullback. And he's going to give us great versatility, but also league experience immediately.
What can you tell us about the goalkeeper that you acquired from Miami, CJ Dos Santos? What does he bring to the team?
Yeah, CJ is a top talent, and more than a top talent, CJ's got a tremendous growth mindset, amazing work ethic. He's already been in Europe before, so he went to Europe pretty young. He's got high end talent. He just hasn't had opportunity yet. And our belief is that he's a top goalkeeper in the league. We also think that he's going to get back in the national team radar. We think he has a future in Europe. And we really want to spend a few years with him, right? Developing him, helping us win games. And we see a complete package who now needs opportunity and experience, but we know that our environment will give that to him.
I feel, and we're talking to San Diego FC head coach Mikey Vadas right now on Annie and Elsten. I feel like a head coach's ability to sleep well at night could be directly tied to his center backs and the amount of confidence you feel in that back line of your defense. You've done a lot of work in that area, and in the last couple of days, trades for Christopher McVeigh today, Andres Reyes. What can you tell us about these guys and how the middle of the defense is sorting out now?
Yeah. From a central back perspective, right? We already had Patty. Patty is top international experience. He's been in the Prem. He's been in the championship. He's a really good passer. He's a good defender. He's a good leader. Then we picked up Chris McVeigh, who's tall, fast, physically imposing. He's also good with the ball. Still even has other levels to get to because he's still a maturing footballer. We would love to see him make his next steps and get back in the national team picture. And then, I think one of the trades in the expansion draft allowing us to get Andres Reyes. Andres is a warrior. He's a top defender. We actually think he's very good with the ball also and is going to be able to grow into our style of play. But ultimately, he's fast, he's strong, he's physically imposing, and he was a major part of the reason Red Bull made that run to the final. And we can't understate how important this pickup is.
Meanwhile, up top, as you mentioned before, and we had Marcus on a couple months ago, you had something to build on there. Then Tomas Angel, acquired from LAFC, played a lot at Phoenix Rising this year, but did have 5 starts for LAFC, got a goal in MLS. Do you see him integrating into your forward mix?
Yeah, absolutely. We're picking Tommy again. We hit the lottery on the fact that he's a high talent, high potential player, but also has tremendous character. He's super hungry. He wants to prove a point. He's going to be able to provide competition at the forward position. He can also play as a winger, inverted into the half space. He's got goal scoring instinct, which is his special quality. And he can absolutely smash a ball, and he always finds good spaces to score goals. Obviously, his genetic background, his family background is of top goal scorers, right? His father was a tremendous player, and now it's his opportunity to forge his own path, and we're really excited about being a part of that.
Mikey, what's next for the club between here and the Super Draft?
Yeah, so now we have free agency. We have the college draft, and then in January, the international window opens. So we're hoping, in the next couple of weeks, we have an influx of free agent players. We know we'll have some draft picks coming in. And then right at the beginning of January, we're hopefully another wave of players coming in through the international window. And then aside from that, we have a lot of our staff hired now. So we've gotten over a big hurdle in terms of staff. We still have a couple more spots open, but now the next step is we got to integrate the staff, right? We got to align the staff. We need to spend time together because what we don't want is to come together in January and have no experience together. So we'll be doing some workshops with staff to make sure that everybody's integrated and aligned, and we're ready to be at our best when the players show up in January.
Coach Vadas, you're giving me tingles. This is really exciting, really fired up. We're now getting players. I know before the weekend is out, we'll have a kit. We'll have the ability to start putting on that kit. Everything is accelerating. We are absolutely thrilled. And just please tell us that as this continues to go on, you'll keep coming on and giving us more updates. Yeah,
of course. Always happy to be on with y'all, and we really appreciate the support. And just a message to everybody out there in San Diego. This means a lot to us, but you all mean a lot to us too, and we're making sure we're doing everything possible to make you proud.
That's awesome.
Can't wait for it. Coach Mikey Vadas, head coach, San Diego FC. Really appreciate the 10 minutes, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
There he goes.
Good stuff.
Hey, you know what? Shout out to the club. I reached out to them this morning, just a couple hours before the show, like, hey, could we get someone on? And got someone on today's show. Mm-hmm. I really like that. I like that. And, sure, as a first-year club, you're building those, but we're trying to build those for you, the listeners, to become fans of this team, because this is a major league team that we can all get behind in 2025.
Yeah, and it's obviously been a big few days for them. Yesterday was a huge day. It continues to go on today. So it's great that it's a timely thing, right? Like, he can come on and everything's still sort of happening and we can learn about it in the moment, which is really, really awesome. So appreciate the club making him available and Mikey taking the time. And I love the part about him being holed up in a room for 20 hours a day. I really want to do this thing where we're like a fly on the wall and you have like Preller and Mikey or Schilt.
Even Tyler Heaps,
whoever is, Brian Dutcher I'd throw in there. Like, I want them to talk shop and we can all kind of hear a little bit about it. I don't know how much they would say if they knew we were flies on the wall.
Well,
feel like
maybe a lot less.
Yeah. They have like their own fraternity here of how things go. It did sound very Preller-esque.
It did a little bit.
Yeah, but good for them. I mean, it sounds like they're really starting to put stuff together.
They are. No, it's exciting. I'm really psyched to see what's going on. And again, it's gone from just, colors and flags and supporters and getting the supporters union together and logo, merch, Chrome Ball tour. All of this stuff was good. It's all seeding the soil, so to speak. But now we're getting players. Now we're getting clips. If you're watching San Diego FC's socials, these players they're bringing in, you're seeing their clips. You're seeing their great plays that they've done at other clubs. And it gets you jazzed going, how's this all going to fit together now? And who's the next guy? That international window in January. Is KDB coming? Is De Bruyne coming down here? We've got Chucky. If we get KDB, oh my God, everyone will be soccer mad. Yeah. Like the soccer community will lose their mind, and I do believe the casuals will start flocking in as well, going, oh, wait, we've got one of the best players in the world here? Hang on a second. Do I need to watch now? Yes, you need to watch. Okay. Well, Johnny stayed on hold.
All right, Johnny.
Let's hit the bumper. We didn't even give out the line. Well, hang on. I have to do this. 833-288-0973. Let's do a quick Ask Us Anything. Here we go. Hey, if you want to call the show right now, and I mean right now, 833-288-0973, we can definitely fit you in.
Definitely have a voice message from Juan in Vista, too.
Do we? Our guy Juan, using the tech. All right, let's knock out Johnny first, who called in and held through in 4S Ranch. Hi, Johnny. Ask us anything, pal.
Hi, happy holidays, Craig, Annie, and Braden.
Happy holidays, Johnny.
So it was really fortuitous today that Coach Barras came on, because obviously I'm very excited about San Diego FC starting in a couple of months. So I have a two-part SDFC question for you guys. First part, once they start playing, will you dedicate a segment to them on your show?
Yes, absolutely.
Part two, awesome, great. And then specifically for you, Craig, what do you think the odds are that we will get Kevin De Bruyne?
I don't think there's zero, man. I mean, I think there's a shot here. The name isn't going to get thrown out there for no reason, in my opinion.
Is it like Roki Sasaki odds?
It's a lot more money.
Oh, okay. So maybe fewer teams will be in on him, sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go.
It's more of, does De Bruyne re-up with Man City? Man City wants to save a little money. They're thinking about moving on from him. But the way that you cash in as an international is go get the bag in the U.S. Yeah. And when you've got an Egyptian billionaire that's trying to make a splash, De Bruyne, Chucky Lozano is good. De Bruyne is a splash. That's a global name.
Yeah. Okay.
A global superstar. So that would really be something. What was part two? It was De Bruyne. Yeah, got it. Johnny, great question, man. Appreciate you. Hey, look at this. Here's Will in Oceanside. Hi, Will. You called in. Ask us anything.
Afternoon, guys. I know you guys have talked about this before, and I know it is off topic from what you guys are talking about today, but I really want to know what you guys think we can do with Xander Bogarts. I like him as a person, but I really feel like his contract is an albatross. You guys have any suggestions? Thanks.
Will, yeah, thank you. I would push you back. Which segment was it that I floated my Xander for Trevor Story?
Maybe? Around 12:30?
Yeah, I think it was around 12:30 that we did a whole what about Xander for Trevor Story, thought through a couple of experiments along those lines. It's going to be something like that, Will. If the Padres ever do, and there's no guarantee that they would or really any signal that they would, but if they're ever going to move off X, it's going to be my bad contract for yours and or we pay off some of the deal in order to offset the future. I think the most likely thing, Annie, is Xander Bogarts' retirement ceremony in San Diego in about 9 years.
Yeah, and I think that Xander Bogarts, as we talked about in the break, he had a 4-WAR season in 2023. He can get back up to those numbers. He can be someone that the Padres can depend on for years to come. I think that is going to be your best case scenario in this.
100% the best case scenario is he just puts up 4 WAR seasons for 9 years. Then we're good. Here's Robert in Vista to wrap up callers. Hi, Robert. Wow. Wind's blowing in Vista.
Guys.
Ask us anything, buddy.
Hey, I love my sports, and I don't like watching them on TV. I prefer the radio. What do you guys like, radio or TV?
Oh, great question, Robert.
I like to go back and forth, especially if it's baseball. I'll switch back from TV to radio. I think they're both really, really cool to see and hear in their own various ways.
I prefer baseball on radio to TV, and I prefer hockey on radio to TV.
I prefer football on TV.
Football on TV to radio, I agree.
I like
and basketball.
I like
as well.
listening to football on the radio.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and as
Guys
much as
get
I
into
love
it.
basketball radio play-by-play, I love it. Still, the skill of the league, I'd rather watch.
I could see that. Baseball on the radio has really become. It's always been. You're right. It's not become. It's always been. It started on the radio. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a timeless classic on the radio.
And I mean, I don't even have to say it, but soccer, it's better to watch because the ball is flowing. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult to do on the radio.
It's difficult. It's not impossible. It can be done. It can be done very well, but it's difficult and it really requires
Was Will on his yacht?
mental exercise. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Let's get in our voice message from Juan and Vista before we get out of here.
All right, Juan and Vista.
Hey, Annie, Craig, and Braden. This is Juan from Vista. I figured I'd send a voice message in today to ask a question and just to keep Braden on his toes a little bit. And my question for you guys is, if the Padres do decide to trade Luis Arraez during the offseason, which team do you think would be willing to trade for him? And what do you think that team would be willing to give up for him?
I love Seattle as a potential comp. I don't think they give up any of their young starters for Luis Arraez, but they need offense.
You need a pass the baton team that isn't just totally about power. I don't know. Maybe we return to that tomorrow.
Let's return to it tomorrow because we're right back with 4 more hours. But Gwen and Chris are up next. For Annie and Braden, I'm Craig. See ya.
Bye.